from papaya. They had not been broadly studied as a human digestive aid, and with pineapples specifically, do not take if you're allergic to pineapple latex wheat. So there's a wide variety of reasons why you should not take pineapple, and actually find that many patients with Sjogren's can be sensitive to like grass pollen. If this might be possible, that may activate like the can produce a mast cell activation syndrome. So I will skip it if you are at risk of those things. They also may have a mild blood thinning effect. Skip it. Better off eating the actual pineapple and papaya. 1 cup of pineapple chunks and papaya chunks are really high in fiber, and they're quite effective, high in potassium and vitamin C. Papaya contains vitamins and antioxidants that can actually help eye health. The pancreatin supports supports digestion, and is an unregulated alternative to prescription digestive enzymes like PERT. But it's administered at very lower doses compared to PERT. There's no regulation. So I would just say skip it, because the majority of bloating occurs to the poor absorption of fermentable carbohydrates. Excuse me, got dry there. Bile salts. Here is really what I thought about this supplement, that it could be a bile acid salts or bile acid sequestrants. And why is this important? Because bile salts may not be absorbed when the gallbladder is removed, leading to a buildup of bile acid causing what is known as bile acid malabsorption diarrhea. But it could really happen to anyone, right? Sometimes when a low FODMAP diet is not effective to manage diarrhea, after ruling out other gut disorders, bile acid malabsorption is suspected. So there is a specific treatment for it, like bile sequestrants and a low-fat diet. So again, this is just a mix of all supplement digestive enzymes. This one is a bovine source or like cow source. But again, the USP units are quite low compared to the pharmaceutical version. And this is like the one that really makes me giggle, because it claims to help digest wheat, dairy, and other grains. And that's not really the true. What it helps is it contains enzymes that target fructose, lactose. So in that case, I will just go for like FODzyme. And it's very misleading, because the only available treatment for individuals with celiac disease is a gluten-free diet. And avoiding gluten altogether may relieve symptoms for individuals with non-celiac gluten with sensitivity. And there's no regulation on the amount or number of enzymes. I just saved your money. So if you didn't receive, you get the email sequence, please let me know so I can send you all this additional information to support your knowledge. And now my final key takeaways is that Sjogren's is a systemic disease that is not limited to dryness, as I've been explaining since last month. Can cause a wide range of gastrointestinal manifestations. Up to 10 to 30% of individuals with Sjogren's may develop EPI, so seek further medical attention. Digestive enzymes should be taken based on individual food triggers, but most importantly, you should really look into what is the root cause of your digestive symptoms. Do not
Alrighty, everybody. I am so sorry for that brief intermission. I'm going to make sure that I send out the link again and make sure that everybody is back here where they're supposed to be. I am going to make sure that I send this out. So just give me 1 second. But I am also going to be introducing our next Our next video, which is from the Spondylitis Association of America, like I mentioned, it is also Axial Spondyloarthritis Awareness Month, and this specific session is going to be about managing mental and emotional health. As we've talked about throughout this stream, not only is it the physical that we all deal with, but it's also the mental and the emotional that comes with it, with having these diseases. And so, I just wanted to preface that. There will be some great tips and tricks here on how to manage your mental and emotional health, having to do with grounding and mindfulness and everything like that. So I'm going to go ahead and share this and make sure that everyone is caught up and that we can make sure that everybody can see this stream. So thank you to everybody who let me know that the stream was down. We got it back up, and hopefully we will be smooth sailing from here on out already. Let's try that again. Share screen, share tab, share audio. Alrighty, here we go. I'm going to pause again because it's showing my whole screen instead of just showing the tab. So let me try again.
In our Spondylitis Association of America and UCB collaboration on healthy living with AxSpa. Hopefully you joined us last time when we talked about the benefits of an anti-inflammatory diet and did some cooking. And I am very thrilled tonight to be joined here by Dr. Jana Baldwin-Lomax. She is a licensed clinical and health psychologist and owner and clinical director of Shift Healing and Health Psychology. I'm Dr. Hillary Norton. I am the medical director of Inspire Santa Fe Medical Group, and I'm a rheumatologist in practice who focuses on spondyloarthritis. So let's talk a little bit about, just quickly, what is spondyloarthritis. This is a group of diseases that includes non-radiographic axial spondyloarthritis, ankylosing spondylitis, reactive arthritis, and others. And this really is characterized by inflammation of the spine and the peripheral joints. It can include enthesitis, inflammation of the tendons and ligaments. And these diseases are really active at night. And so right away, we're talking about sleep disruption. Whenever we're talking about an inflammatory disease, we know that that has an impact on mental and emotional health. And these patients are at increased risk of anxiety, depression, sleep disorders. And we know that, the less control that people feel like they have over their disease, the worse these things can be. So it's really important for us to acknowledge the whole person, the whole health. And that's where Dr. Lomax really comes in. And that's where we really want to partner with mental health experts in this space so that we can treat the whole person. So welcome, Dr. Lomax.
Thanks. I'm so happy to be here with you, and I'm so happy that you guys are recognizing the impact of a chronic illness such as these, and how they can certainly increase risk for emotional distress, and the long-term effects of stress on the body can have long-term effects on stress on the mind and social life.
Absolutely. And, I think not a week goes by in clinical practice where I don't get asked, did stress cause this disease, or did stress cause this flare? Because I think that intuitively we know how much impact stress has on our immune systems. And we have great studies and data that show us that. But, I think that unless we address the whole person and these aspects, we're not going to get the optimal outcomes.
Right. And as we know, there's no such thing as a stress-free life. There's no way to control, in many cases, the stress that's coming into our lives. It really is our life's journey to figure out how we respond to and perceive stress in our lives. So even if someone was experiencing a high stress time that they did not bring upon themselves, their response to that may demonstrate resilience and incredible coping skills, but is still going to have some impact on how their body experiences that stress. And so a lot of my work with people with chronic illness is to evaluate what they perceive as stressors, and then what sort of tools they have in their toolkit to respond to those stressors. And often it is about adding more tools to the toolkit and not continually depending on some that maybe are no longer serving them or no longer working.
I love that. I think that's such an important point, that it's how we respond to stress and what our coping mechanisms are. Because like you said, we all have stress in life, but it's very empowering to think that we could have tools that allow us to respond better. Because if we're thinking about, well, I can't, eliminate stress, then that thought in itself can cause stress, right? But to realize that, well, stress is going to be there, but we can actually respond in a different way. Again, I think that's very empowering.
And we also know that a certain amount of stress is actually beneficial for us. It helps us perform better. It helps us focus. It helps us actually activate. If we don't have enough things that challenge us in our lives, we become complacent or aren't really able to engage fully. So I talk with my patients about this bell curve as it pertains to anxiety or stress in their performance. And we want to be somewhere in the middle. A certain amount of stress really helps us optimally function in life. We don't want to be without any, and we don't want to be paralyzed by stress. We want to be in the middle.
What a great concept that a certain amount of stress is healthy. I love that. And, that really reminded me of another concept that we think about a lot when we're treating chronic pain, and that is our response to pain, right? Because we can let that consume us, we can let it be a negative thing, or we can put a little bit of space between us and the sensation of pain. And, then I'm getting a little bit into the concept of mindfulness-based stress reduction, but, we can choose how we respond to all of these different things in life. And so I think that your field is so fascinating because it just gives us these tools to respond differently.
Yes, yes. And yeah, we certainly can talk about creating that space, or how do we respond to that stimuli in our body that's telling us something. And so often, I think historically in mental health and even in medicine, we're trying to damp down or suppress that that message to us. But I'm working with my clients to try to get curious about what that message is trying to tell us, and recognizing that if we don't get so married to what that means, then we may notice that that message may flow more freely. And so pain may fluctuate in terms of how you experience it if you're willing to get curious about it, rather than catastrophizing and immediately, maybe having a joint pain and jumping to, oh my gosh, this is going to be a flare and it's going to impact my vacation next week. And being able to say, I'm going to pause, breathe into this, or get curious about it, maybe take 10 minutes break from evaluating what it feels like in the moment and see if it shifts at all. And so starting to get in relationship with how our body and mind responds to stimuli, rather than feeling like we have to completely shut it down or distract ourselves from it. Because often those messages, both emotionally and physically, are trying to tell us something, but we sometimes misinterpret what they're trying to tell us.
Oh, that's so good. That's so good. When I was in training in medical school, we were taught that the neurosystem was different than the immune system, was different than the endocrine system. And then there's this fascinating field of psychoneuroimmunology. And we know that all of this is connected, which of course it's all connected. So I'm hoping that you can give us some tips and tools about how you just tell people, how do you help them? What can we do that's really practical?
Well, one of the ways I like to back up and talk with patients about, how do they start to know that they are tipping into that red zone of stress? What are their, because everyone's different, and I bristle at these, kind of one size fits all coping mechanisms. Well, you should journal, or even mindfulness. That those things don't always work for everybody. And so we kind of peel back the layers and say, what tend to be your social responses when you're stressed? Are you short with people? Do you isolate? Do you seek out support when you're stressed? So looking at multidimensional ways of responding to stress, social, cognitive, somatic, emotional, and then recognizing that those are all different ways that we respond to stress, and people can start to learn their barometer for what are the first indicators that they're moving into that red zone. So some people think, oh, I need to have a glass of wine. Well, let's pause there and see what it is. What's going on in my system that's leading me to think I need that? Or I just lost it on my coworker. I should pause and see what's going on here. So that's one of the first tools that we unpack, is what are the ways that I can start to know if I'm tipping into that place of dysfunctional response?
That's so good, because it's so hard to recognize a flare, physical flare sometimes, right? And people have a hard time, even after living with the disease for many years, knowing what's actually a flare and what's not. But since stress is the most common reason that I see for flares happening, if you can get those first clues, that's great. Those are really empowering tools.
And if you feel empowered, I love that you use that term, to be able to pause and say, maybe I need to make a shift in what I'm doing right now, because I'm starting to notice that this is coming up for me. And that tends to be the hardest piece, because we are often moving on a hamster wheel, and we're often, going through the motions of so many things, that if we have to pause and either tell somebody, you know what, I know I committed to volunteering this weekend or doing this, and I'm going to have to say no. So it really is about honoring our values to ourselves and being able to set boundaries, recognizing that if I say no to that activity now, I'm going to have more bandwidth to really show up in a month from now when I'm volunteering again, for example. And so teaching people about assertiveness and the importance of being clear about what's important to them, and that what's important to them is really how that needs to be their guiding post.
Oh, that's so good for everybody. I mean,
Yeah.
especially if you're living with a chronic disease, which adds a whole different layer to everything. But really, for all of us, it's sort of that idea that you have to take care of yourself before you can take care of anybody else in life, right?
Yes, yes. And so frequently we default to old patterns of coping without recognition that we've evolved and grown over time, that maybe some of our old tools no longer serve us. And for some reason, I don't know what it is in our society, that we feel so, identified with certain things are so me, but we get to change. And you get to say, that group of people maybe doesn't serve me, or that music used to be a stress reliever for me and no longer is. And to really give ourselves license to evolve. I mean, what are we doing here? What are we learning if we're not evolving? And so many people get really tied to identifying it's a certain way. And I really invite people to explore what it means to grow and to change and to evolve, and to surround themselves with people who are also interested in really changing, really
Oh
evolving.
boy, that just really speaks to me. I love that. As somebody who thrives on change, I just love that concept of,
Yes.
finding out what works for you now. And maybe that's different than 5 years ago, or even 3 months ago. That's
Yeah.
fantastic.
Yes, and I think often with chronic illness, there's so much loss that people experience, loss of sense of health, loss of sense of control of their, self or their schedule, and they often get kind of stuck in that place of focusing on what they've lost. And I really want to honor that there's an important place for that grief, and that
Yeah.
does deserve, and we can create some energy around what it's like to have lost things. But often we gain wisdom as well. We get to choose what amount of our pie graph of life the arthritis gets to live in. It doesn't go away, but where does, and recognizing that with a flare, it's going to take up a much larger slice of the pie, but making sure that those other slices of the pie that bring resilience, that further, grow who you are as a dynamic person, also get a lot of energy. Because often people are so frustrated around their condition that it gets so much more of the pie than it actually needs.
Oh, that's a really good point. I've talked before about even at times thanking the disease as a patient, because it causes you to go to that deeper level. Everything that you're talking about right now, the disease can be that thing that prompts you to go there and to do that work. And that's a gift to do that work.
That's exactly right. I mean, you can still be, for the remainder of your life, angry that you got this diagnosis and that it didn't, you don't need to, most people didn't need this lesson, or this wasn't the only way they were going to learn it. This whole everything happens for a reason is a real frustrating idea to me, not something that I ascribe to, but they get back into the driver's seat. So yes, it can be a gift because they found resilience they didn't have before, or they really rededicated to things that are important to them, or they got clear on what was important to them, because it might have been they were living a life for things that were important to other people. And that's, I mean, specializing in this area for the past 20 plus years, I'm working with most people who are seeking mental health for the first time because they were diagnosed with some sort of life altering condition. And it can be a gift, but it can be a gift that you can still feel frustrated about, but getting
Sure.
empowered, getting back in the driver's seat about what you want to take from that event, from that diagnosis. And this is true for most of us who experience some level of trauma or loss or something we didn't choose in our lives. We learn to adapt and evolve and bring those wounds with us as signs of power, as our superpower.
Oh, yeah, I love that as our superpower. That's really good. So, can you share with us some of those strategies that you share with patients for approaching this?
Yes, yes. So, I mean, I do deeply believe in a gratitude practice as a regular tool for, I mean, and we know the science is there. Robert Amons is one of my favorite researchers. He's written a number of books on gratitude as a health practice. And we know that it can actually reduce depression and anxiety risk, and it can improve social engagement and social interaction. It also helps people not feel so isolated. If we feel grateful to the universe and grateful to the people in our lives, maybe it's the barista at Starbucks who made the best coffee, if we can really recognize that our wellness comes in community, then gratitude is a great practice for balancing out the things in life that also feel frustrating and don't feel in our control.
I was even reading recently that gratitude practices actually change our brains, that it physically changes our brain when we practice gratitude on a regular basis. That's amazing.
That's right. And I think it's a kind of a lower hanging fruit, if you will, than what people perceive as mindfulness or meditation. And there's such a wide gamut with meditation that I try to let people know my personal approach with meditation, I've been practicing for a long time, is a guided meditation, to listen to someone else's voice. Because if I'm left alone with my own thoughts, despite all of my efforts, I still end up wandering down a path that I didn't want to go.
Yes,
helping people to either use, Insight Timer or Calm or some of those apps that are out there. And most of them are free. I don't think people need to pay for guided imagery. There's lots out there, Spotify and plenty of places, but find things that resonate with you. And maybe it's not about managing pain. Maybe it's about gratitude. Maybe it's about loss. Maybe it's about, connecting with your higher power. And what people who are of spiritual or religious practice may not recognize is that prayer is a form of meditation as well. And so they may be more practiced in that than they recognize. But I like to have a go-to place for, I have just, when I need it, I have a place in my mind that really grounds me and I can get there in just a second. And I encourage people to have a safe or relaxing place that they practice regularly, so it's very accessible if they're pulling up to the doctor's office, to ground themselves right as they walk in.
Oh, that's a really great tip. I love that. And I'm a big fan also of the guided apps. I have discovered that those sleep meditations are much more powerful than you would think. I mean, those are really helpful.
Sleep meditations are amazing. And if you fall asleep, that means it's working. A lot of people fall asleep listening to meditations, like that's deep relaxation.
The idea.
Here's success. That's right.
That's the idea. Exactly. Exactly.
The other tools that I, recommend to people is making sure that they're getting outside and communing with nature in some way, shape, or form. We spend way too much time inside on technology with a screen in front of our face. We also know that that puts us at risk for emotional distress. And so I highly recommend that people, even if they're having a really big flare day, is to get near a window, open that window, or just get outside and sit and notice their environment. Get outside of their body, get outside of their head, and notice what's happening around them.
Forest bathing. So I talk to my patients about forest bathing. There was an incredible study that I learned about. So it's called Shinrin-yoku in Japanese. And they took two groups of people, and they had one group walk in nature. They had the other group walk in an urban setting, and not walk as in get your heart rate up, get your exercise in, but just wander. And beforehand, they drew their blood, they checked their immune cells, their natural killer T cells, then they checked it afterwards. And the group that wandered in the forest had a better immune system, a stronger immune system, and it lasted for weeks. They checked them again. And so I think that, that study was just about appreciating nature, about noticing that tree, about noticing the color of it, the texture of it, just noticing our surroundings. And I often recommend to people who are struggling with fatigue to get outside in nature at least once a day, because studies have shown that it really does help with fatigue.
Yes. I'm so glad that you have that as part of your recommendations. And I love the forest bathing idea. That's awesome.
And it's such a fun concept, right? Bathing in the forest. And we can do that anywhere, like you said. It can just be stepping outside of your house or your office or wherever you are and just appreciating nature for a minute. It really helps.
It's hugely impactful. And I think people would assume as a psychologist that I, espouse therapy. And yes, talk therapy. We know there are many opportunities and benefits and interventions, but there are lower hanging fruit than that, which is, a gratitude practice or getting outside and also engaging in community in some way. That's the other piece is I assess, who are you surrounding yourself with? What do you feel engaged in? And I know that's really hard for people. They tend, if their illness has tremendously impacted their functional status, they can really feel disconnected from their previous social life. And so finding ways to re-engage in community, maybe that's not the same community that you used to be engaged with. And although finding support through a spondyloarthritis support group is a nice part of gaining community, I would also recommend people do something that is not related to their health or wellness, that is related to something they care about. Is it a book club? Is it, knitting? Is it just some level or some kind of community that helps you grow another part of your identity that may have been lost by virtue of the illness? So that's a really big focus too.
Yeah, no, I think that we have a lot of studies that tell us the benefits of socialization. And, when we have a chronic disease, if you're struggling with pain, it can be easy to isolate. So that's a really good reminder.
And often people think they need to make excuses for their limitations in comparison to their previous self. But if they're developing a new chapter of their lives with this illness, they get to walk in and be whatever version of themselves that they are now. And so if they're volunteering at a pet shelter or something, they don't have to make excuses. Those people didn't know their previous version of themselves.
Mm.
I really like this idea of recognizing that it's about your relationship to yourself and not feeling like you're an excuse, but you get to be as full a version of you that you can be with this new, illness, this new chapter that you're
Oh,
in.
that is a great, great concept. It's who we are today, right? Right now.
Right, that's right. And as we go through life, we experience a lot of loss, a lot of trauma, a lot of change. There's nobody out there that is unscathed. But I think when you're in an illness, it can be so isolating and it can be so, there's so much loneliness, which we know increases risk for depression and anxiety. So it really is about finding ways of connecting. We are social beings at our core, and we know for our overall wellness, being part of something with community is really essential for wellness and mental health.
Absolutely. Very good tips. Very good tips. And I know that you recommend exercise. You talk about hobbies and interests, and that can all tie in together, right?
Oh, absolutely. Yes. Movement in whatever way one can. And I think, again, it is about loving this chapter of your life, finding ways to feel grateful, finding ways to focus on what is working, even if there is loss that you're no longer able to maybe run, but you can walk and do mindful walking, recognizing that in there we can't completely dismiss that there's loss and there's sadness, but how do we grow what we feel grateful for? How do we grow a new, new recognition of the resilience that we're building in the face of adversity?
Yeah, I mean, that resilience concept keeps coming up because it's so important for our healthy immune system, our resilient reaction to life stressors and to life in general.
Yeah, I've had patients tell me, I'm tired of being resilient. And that's time to take intentional rest. So I think a lot of people feel forced to rest by their illness. But if you're intentional and you say, I'm going to spend this time really disconnecting, not going to be scrolling on social media, not going to be, but really intentional rest in whatever way, shape, or form, that can be so much more fulfilling than feeling forced to have to check out of life. So shifting your mindset around taking some time, and that rest can really be a tool for building resilience, is so important. But our society as a whole also needs to recognize that.
We need to get better at rest. I agree.
Yeah.
I mean, I think that we don't prioritize that. And for our health in general, all of us could use to shut off the screens and to just have some downtime. That's really good for us. So yeah, really, really great tips.
Great. Yeah.
And then I know that you had said that breathing is something that I'm recommend. I'm really curious about this because I've talked to other practitioners, even a physical therapist that I work with. He recommends taking that time out. And if you wear a smartwatch and, they have apps where you can just take a minute and breathe. And, for people who are go, go, go all the time, stopping and just anchoring with the breath can be really helpful.
Yes, and we know people who experience trauma and also people who experience pain feel disconnected from their body. And sometimes that's a coping strategy, but what we don't know is that sometimes we're not recognizing some of those cues. So breathing can be a great way to reconnect, become more embodied, get back into one's body. And there are so many different breathing techniques that have different outcomes. But one of the breathing techniques that I like that has been studied for lowering, heart rate and blood pressure is the 4-7-8 breath, where you inhale for 4, hold for 7, and that's not 7 whole seconds, it's whatever your count, and then exhale very slowly. But we do know that can really slow things down. The square breath is another one that people do. They sort of visualize a square of inhale and exhale and holding the breath in between. But really, it's just about reconnecting with one's body and noticing without judgment what's happening in one's body. And then I like to encourage people to radiate gratitude toward all parts of their body because they're trying to achieve homeostasis. Our bodies are trying to achieve balance. And so if we can radiate gratitude toward that, then there is less battle happening internally.
Oh yeah, and just increasing the parasympathetic nervous system because we're in fight or flight mode so much of the time. And then if you sort of feel like you're doing battle with your own body due to pain and other symptoms, I think that increases that sense of fight or flight. And to calm that has a huge impact on our physiology. And
Yeah.
it's free. Our breath is it's there. We have to do it. It's a free tool to us. So I need that reminder too, but to just come back to our breath throughout the day is very powerful.
Yep. There are types of therapy called somatic experiencing or somatic-based therapies, which I would recommend if people are pursuing that they find a licensed and experienced practitioner, but that can really help people learn a bit more about how to connect with their body, particularly people who've been through traumas or their bodies have been through traumas, to reconnect with different parts of their body that may have been disconnected as a coping mechanism, but remain disconnected, and that is no longer serving them. So that's one of the therapies. And then, other interventions are acceptance and commitment therapy, EMDR, cognitive behavioral therapies. Those we all know can be nice tools for people that may have a lower emotional intelligence or less practice connecting with how their thoughts, their behaviors, and their emotions interact with one another. So
I think that the basic message is if you're interested in these things, definitely find a licensed practitioner who is an expert in this, who can help guide you. It's so inspiring to hear about all these different ways that we can really better our emotional and mental health, because it's such an important part of our health in general. So I'm inspired to do a better job focusing on all of this. And I hope that everybody else who has heard this is inspired as well. It's been a pleasure talking to you about all of this. I think your patients are very fortunate to have you to help them along this journey. So
ditto. Yeah. Thanks so much. And I'm so glad that you asked these questions and pursue these things with your patients, because your patients are also very fortunate to have someone that is thinking about their whole system when thinking about their wellness.
Well, we have incredible medications in this space, but I often tell people that unless we address the rest of their health, we're just not going to get the optimal outcome. So I think we're all striving for optimal health, and this has been a really inspiring conversation. Thank you so much for joining me and talking to me. And I would like to thank UCB for sponsoring this SAA video, the second part in our Healthy Living with with AxSpa series. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining us.
Yes, thank you.
Hey, everybody. So thank you so much to the Spondylitis Association of America for giving us that really informative video on managing mental and emotional health. I see a lot of comments in the chat. So thank you to everybody in the chat who is responding to the content. We really appreciate it. Brittany says, going outside in nature without your phone. We always take our phone on a walk, run to water the garden. I've been trying to implement that too, trying to, just disconnect and not bring my phone everywhere if I don't need it. So that is a great suggestion. Judy also replied, true, about all of these suggestions that they were giving. Brittany says, my friend is a PT, having me work on deep breathing to reduce stress, but also to get more movement in my back to reduce pain. Oh, wow. Deep breathing to help with reducing pain in your back. That's awesome. She says, I'm not great at it, but been trying for a few minutes a day helps. Yes. And I heard the speakers talk about triangle breaths or the 4-7-4 breaths. Those actually really help me to relax and fall asleep. And so it has been a really good tactic to kind of help me calm down. I have been very adamant about like deep breathing and things like that too. So I've been able to use some of those tactics. So I hope that you all that are watching are able to do that as well. Try out some of these methods. And if you look up mindful meditations on YouTube as well, you'll find a lot of great resources. Okay, and so let's see, we are doing okay on time. We are going to be showing a clip of one of our community chats that has to do with anti-inflammatory foods and lifestyle medicine in general. So you did see the clip from the arthritis dietitian. The session or the segment before this, and so we are going to have her again. She's on this community chat, and we are going to show a quick clip. So I am going to pull that up. Alrighty, so here we go with the next segment.
Give up as well. But Stacy Style Soul, you are right there with it. I'm glad you found that those things are your triggers, and it is life-saving if you do find them, for sure.
Yeah, and I feel that it's so individualized. Like we cannot generalize that this is like the bank statement. A lot of people ask me, "Oh, can you just send me the meal plan?" I send guides, but it's really based on your preferences, your, if your budget, your lifestyle. It all depends. And while we were having this conversation, I actually prepared a little almost vegan parfait with strawberries and Nutella. That's where the almost vegan comes. So just to show you later, like how quickly and easy it is to really prepare an anti-inflammatory snack or meal.
Absolutely. And like you said, I think that that's super important, that, you know, not everybody is going to like all of the, you know, the set meal plans that people may produce. Like as an Asian American or as a Filipino, you know, like rice is such a big thing in our culture and in a lot of Latin cultures and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of diets that you'll see, it's like, oh no, you have to completely eliminate all white rice. And it's like, that doesn't seem really realistic for a lot of people. You know what I mean? And so I think that's super important. And like you said, budgetary also, you know, some people can't afford organic, you know, vegan cheese and things like that. And I feel like it's, like you said, it should be catered to each person and their lifestyle. So as you guys are all listening to this, pick and choose things that you would like and that you think will fit in your lifestyle. Don't feel just because, you know, people are suggesting the things that you don't like to eat that you have to eat them and force yourself to do that. That can cause, you know, a lot of other issues down the road. And I think that definitely making sure that, you know, what you're picking and choosing what fits your own lifestyle from the advice that they give.
And also, like, you know, food should bring you joy. And I definitely feel that I have my own garden and my own herb garden, and I love to cook from that. It's so much fun as far as doing that goes and just learning all different kinds of things. But, you know, usually if it's a piece of information that you're struggling with, all these categories have multiple foods in them. So you, there are things that we try to steer you away from, like nightshade vegetables and things like that, that could be a trigger for you. But if you eliminate them and you notice that you're still in the same bucket, and then you reintroduce them and you're not noticing any change, then you can pretty much say that is not a trigger for you. So yeah, I live by tools in the kitchen and life hacks in the kitchen. I cook from my pantry and my freezer. We have an upright freezer, so I buy things on sale. That is something that I've always lived by, and I think it was my grandfather that, you know, taught me to do that. You buy things that when they're on sale, and you store them in the freezer if you have that space. Sometimes you don't have that space. If you're just have that little part of your freezer, the top part of your freezer or the bottom part of your freezer, wherever your freezer lives, you've got to kind of strategize what you put in there.
You know, that was something different for me because I was, you know, I'm born and raised in Colombia, and many times we actually live by the day. So we bought and purchased the foods that we needed for the day. So we didn't have that mentality that you will buy for a week worth of food. It's like, no, we don't know if we're going to have money for tomorrow's food. So that was a learning experience, and I'm still adjusting. I have to be honest. I feel like when I see a whole abundance of food, it's like, oh my God, how many people are not eating? So, but I learned that definitely the one thing that I find here in Canada is like all the frozen fruits and vegetables, and recognizing that there are some low budget foods that, man, like these days in Canada is crazy. The food prices they're crazy, and the amount of people are using food banks that they are not even using it. It's unreal, and we need to acknowledge that yeah, perhaps we can have all these organic foods and all these sprouts and beautiful foods, but we need to acknowledge that we need to eat. We still need energy and nutrition to maintain our like vital functions. And I don't know if it'll be worth sharing, but I work at a food bank once, and they told me, what do you do with mac and cheese? Okay, right? This is like a staple in North America. And I didn't eat it. I was like, oh, what the heck is that? I don't know what that is. Mac and cheese. And so what do you do with mac and cheese? I said, what if it's the only thing that perhaps you can have? for your meal today and share it. So you kind of have to power it up and add some anti-inflammatory foods to that, like shredded carrot actually tastes pretty good with this. You have like maybe frozen broccoli that it also is going to boost up, right? Broccoli tastes delicious with cheese. So it in a way, okay, no, it's not ideal, but I just really get upset at the food shaming that you maybe can't afford to buy certain foods. Okay, what can you do to improve the nutritional profile of what you have access to?
Right.
And that was my rant for today.
I actually fully support that too, because depending on where you live, if you live in an apartment and you don't have access to a car, and the corner store is your next best spot to buy groceries from, what they offer, I think some of them are getting better. They do offer some fruit and things like that you could probably grab, but I mean, for a lot of people, it's the bag of chips that they see, and they're hungry and they think that that's what they want to go towards. Ideally, that's probably not the best choice, but some of them are doing better as far as some of the choices that they'll at least offer in some of those locations. But it's not necessarily the person's fault either, and don't look down on yourself if that is what your choice of groceries is. We can try to give you some recommendations of things to eat. Again, it's a lifestyle, and it is something you have to try to get used to as far as trying to eat healthier. It's a mindset. I think that's more of a better way of saying it. Knowing that you will feel better if you're eating healthier. So if you have an autoimmune disease, that is going to make a big impact on me. It did for me as far as how I cook and things like that. But I also do have my cheat days where fried chicken is kind of my favorite yummy food. And I don't do that often, but I mean, we all cheat, and you've got to allow yourself those simple pleasures of things that you get used to. And, but just trying to influence what you have in your house and what you're grocery shopping for. Don't go grocery shopping when you're hungry. That is a bad decision, because you're going to grab and you're going to go at impulses of what speaks to you at the moment.
And also start your grocery shopping at home. Like sometimes we just kind of go mindlessly go into the grocery shop. And that's what I did with my kitchen clean out challenge, which was very simple, but I think it really gave the tools to the participants to really acknowledge what they have in their pantry or the freezer or the fridge, kind of make a list of what they have. Then maybe there are things that they can toss because it's old, or maybe maybe they have, I'm going to make that change. I don't want to see the mac and cheese, so I'm going to donate it. And that's fine too, right? That is really a way to start changing that mindset, just to even look at what is at your environment. So start with your kitchen. So what is the inventory? What you have? What is lacking? Then you start restocking with all these anti-inflammatory foods, and which we can list in a minute. Then right, making sure that you have everything is like within your field of vision, right? Instead of the potato chips, perhaps you want to have more like the nuts or the dry fruits. Those are things that are kind of within your, so you're hungry, that's what you're going to grab, not the potato chips, right? So it's about how you play with your mind too, and just take one step at a time. If the only thing that you want to change is your breakfast for a month, then just start with your breakfast. And remember that I learned this, is you measure your success against your progress, not against your ideals. So you have to look at yourself, how you were last month, and you say, oh, I was only eating eggs with butter. Hey, but today, 30 days later, I'm actually adding oatmeal and I'm adding more fruits to I'm adding maybe a smoothie. So that's how you measure success. You don't measure success at how the influencer is kind of look at what I ate today. No.
Yeah, and I like what you mentioned before about like the mac and cheese with the frozen broccoli. That's something that I had that I really resonate with, because for me, just incorporating vegetables in general was hard for me. I could only eat it in soup, or I could only eat it with a sauce on top and things like that. And I didn't like the texture, like that frozen vegetables would give you, but then when I would buy fresh vegetables, then they would go bad. And so recently I just like went mostly fully on frozen vegetables and found ways to make them that I like it. Like I microwave it up for a little bit to defrost it, and then I throw it in the air fryer to roast them and add, you know, like all the seasonings and things like that. And also like with cheat days, like if me and my fiance want to go get a burger, then I also make sure to make a side of broccoli, or make a side of green beans, just to make sure that we get in those vegetables still, even if we are eating something that's a little less nutritious. So I agree with adding like that makes me feel better, that I'm doing a little bit better for my diet whenever I do that. And just, it's much easier to have frozen broccoli florets inside the freezer and just pop it in. Lindsay says a tiny bit of bacon grease helps too. That's very true. I had an obsession with Brussels sprouts and a little bit of bacon. I would eat it for lunch for like every day in the middle of the pandemic when we were all just like sitting at home. Yep. I just wanted to eat Brussels sprouts. But yes, that was such a great intro and so many good tips so far already. I'd love to go into the nitty gritty of you guys letting us know about different anti-inflammatory foods that you recommend, and maybe even suggesting different things that may cause more inflammation, like that people can decrease in their diet also.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. There's a whole list of foods that you really want to limit. And there's, as far as the anti-inflammatory diet, the first things I think I'll add, Cristina, if that's okay, is fish. A lot of us don't think about fish that often, but adding more salmon and tuna, those type of different kinds of fish, they are much higher in antioxidants and omega-3 fatty acids. Again, the lingo of being a dietitian, but just think of fish. If you don't buy fish, try to, maybe a small goal is to add one dinner or one main meal, whether your dinner is at nighttime or in the afternoon. Try to aim for fish at least one time a week. Just something small that you can start to work at. But those type of things definitely help aid with trying to have more of an anti-inflammatory response versus the inflammatory response, which as you see my hands have that inflammatory response. Yes. Those type of things. And fruits and vegetables, if you can have anywhere between 1 to 2 cups of fruit a day. I know that sounds like a lot, but if you have a grapefruit is a large grapefruit can be close to 2 cups of fruit. So you're doing it in one portion. And 2 to 3 cups of vegetables. That can be a salad at nighttime, so leafy vegetables, 1 larger bowl of salad or 2 small salads, adding different colors of vegetables into your diet, whether it's carrots and broccoli, cauliflower. I know I have a texture thing with broccoli and cauliflower. I love raw cauliflower, so it lives in my salads, but I don't like cooked cauliflower. It takes on a whole different flavor. I love cooked broccoli, but I don't love raw broccoli, but I will eat it. And different kinds of vinaigrettes I tend to dip into, those type of things make it easier to meet those requirements. Cristina, take over.
All right. Okay, so I will go for the vegan or the plant-based options for omega-3s, because not everyone, but you might just not like seafood or fish at all, which I found people hate it. And I love salmon or some cod or tuna. I love tuna. I could eat tuna every day. So, but that's probably you want to keep your mercury levels also down. Unfortunately, that's kind of the world we're living in. So I think the 1 time a week is a very realistic goal. But what if you don't enjoy it, or you're vegan, or you're following a different dietary pattern? So basically the best way to get omega-3s is from hemp seeds. or hemp oil, even though it's not as really as effective, right? The body doesn't convert it into like the actual DHA and EPA, just the dietitian talk, that is going to have that effect on inflammation. So in that situation, they actually developed the like a Nutri-C algae that it is concentrated in omega-3. So in those situations, then the supplementation becomes actually necessary if you are not getting all your omega-3s from your diet, because unfortunately, it's so easy to get the omega-6, right? And it doesn't mean that they're completely like harmful all the way, right? But every time we go out, they're going to be cooking on, say sunflower oil, right? Or they're going to just baked goods all have extra omega-6. So you want to make sure that we have a good balance of both oils. And in general, if you're choosing like the best oils for inflammation, is those were unsaturated and monounsaturated fats. And especially, I always says olive oil is king, and actually did a nice post in my Instagram account about the cooking oils for arthritis. And then the next one, I would say avocado oil is a little bit more pricey, but I would say this. The good thing about it is that it tolerates takes higher temperatures than olive oil, but they both are high in antioxidants and monounsaturated fats. And the controversial one is like coconut oil. What do you think about coconut oil, Deb?
Uh, it is one of those that's hard because, again, it is it's solid, so it's a solid oil until you heat it. I tried to use more coconut oil, and I ended up going more towards avocado oil, which I was able to cook a little bit easier with than I did the coconut. I'm not a big fan overall.
And I think overall with the coconut oil, I think there is that sense that like, oh my God, it's because it has the medium chain fatty acids, so they're easy to absorb. But at the end of the day, more than like 95% or 96% of the content is saturated fat. And there is really robust evidence suggesting that excess of saturated fats are inflammatory. They are not promoting for the cardiovascular health, right? They're detrimental for your cardiovascular health. And so it doesn't mean that you stop eating saturated fats, but then you just kind of replace. Sometimes coconut oils is delicious, and Caribbean food, like Thai food. And so then you enjoy it, right? But not to make it the primary source of the oils in your diet.
Right. Absolutely. I tend to, my cooking pleasure, I've probably like 20 olive oils and different flavors of olive oil sitting on my right next to my stove, and I cook with basil olive oil and rosemary olive oil, the lemon olive oil, there's a tangerine olive oil. There's so many different levels and flavors that it brings me joy because I bring different flavors into everything. And I love like cooking with a lot of herbs too, fresh herbs and spices, and also dried ones as well. But you can just do so much with flavor in just such a small way. So I tend to have landed more with the olive oils just in my own house, just because I find so many different ways of using them.
Yeah, and that's actually great. That's something I learned too. Like olive oil wasn't like my favorite oil because we are not used to back home in Colombia. But then it takes small steps, right? One at a time. And at this time, I only cook with olive oil. It took me like 5 years to do that, or even more, to really. So just take your time. So every change doesn't happen overnight. But if you make a change that's going to be sustainable for the rest of your life, that's the change you want to keep. Well, you mentioned so again we go for fruits and vegetables. So I kind of have my things here that I low budget in inflammatory foods. So I definitely during the winter here in Canada and the north, frozen fruits and vegetables again becomes a big asset, especially berries. Berries are really high in antioxidants and fiber. And really, when you buy fresh oils, like I just went into like a 1 pound of fresh strawberries, it's like $6, sometimes $7. Here you'll have almost like again 600 grams more for less money, and then you can keep it and use it for a long time in the freezer. And just like I made my parfait with Nutella, you see?
Yeah, looks beautiful.
So,
Beautiful.
so take advantage of all seasonal foods as well. Remember, they are more packed with nutrients than the ones that are transported. Like I don't eat papaya here. I will only eat it in Colombia. I know it's not going to have the same nutritional profile
Right. And
that when it
yeah,
travels here.
the flavor isn't going to be quite the same either with that kind of thing, is for sure.
What about whole grains? What do you think about whole grains?
I do actually try to encourage as many whole grains as possible versus a white enriched bread. I go for whole grain breads. I also love the seedy breads with all of the sesame seeds and different kinds of grains within them. I like those kind of breads, like the 10 grain breads and the 12 grain breads. It's not always for everybody, but I try to increase that. I only buy wheat bread and oat nut bread and all those different kinds of things, just as something easy that I know that if we are going to have bread, the only time I buy white bread is when I make my stuffing for Thanksgiving. That was how I learned how to make our stuffing. So that is the one time a year that I do buy white bread. But I definitely enjoy those kinds of breads as well, because they've got a little bit more to it and there's more flavor to it. And when you're biting into some like a pumpkin seed within your bread, that's kind of a nice texture in my mouth. But baby steps, if you're not used to that, then try to buy whole wheat bread or make your own breads. I know that is kind of a hard for some folks, but I do really enjoy baking and cooking. So I do like playing with different kinds of breads and things like that. But that's my thing on the whole wheats.
Well, I'll bring something from my pantry, and I wanna give kudos to Twisted Sister. I love that. She wants to eat more pescatarian, which is great, right? Like you have the seafood that are more like plant forward, and love fruits and veggies too. So I think that's a great start, right? It's the dietary pattern that fits your lifestyle and your preferences. So always remember that. I do follow a gluten-free diet. So, and because after a lot of research and all that in my own body, which can take another life, but if you are eating like gluten-free, my favorite brand is Promise. I don't know if you ever, this is in Canada. It's called a Promise, and because it just tastes very similar to just regular bread. Sometimes it's very difficult to make that kind of whole grain gluten-free. But what I like about Promise is at least they make the effort to add some extra fiber. So just for 2 slices of bread, it has 8 grams of fiber, which is like 30% of your daily needs. So that's really good.
Yeah.
This so definitely is my go-to bread. But I wanted to say and bring up about the white rice, and I continue having this conversation. As a Latina, white rice was a staple and still is. I do not like brown rice. I just can't stand it. And I just feel that we also need to recognize the benefits of eating out white rice. So because nutrition continues to evolve with new information, now we recognize that white rice and potatoes, when they're cooked, cooked, cooled, and reheated, they actually accumulate resistant starches that bypasses the digestive system, and it goes and feeds the good bacteria to go and heal our gut. So come on, rice is back in my plate.
That is
And
I did see a note from Hippie Abuela. It says, I thought seeds and grains are a no-no for AIP. It is a no-no for AIP. That is a very strict diet. So that I just wanted to comment on that. I just saw that right now. And not I think we're talking about the anti-inflammatory diet more specifically, not necessarily the AIP diet. But there are people that do and thrive very well with the AIP diet. I don't want to knock it by any means, but we're speaking a little bit more broadly. So, but you are correct in saying that.
And for those who don't know, the AIP diet is anti-inflammatory protocol. It does say to avoid things like grains, legumes, nightshade vegetables, eggs, dairy. But like Deb said, it's very, very like by the book and very, very difficult to stay behind unless you are very determined and need to do that for your health. But yeah, so that's what the AIP is for those who don't know.
So
thank you.
it's not like, but actually it's not an anti-inflammatory, it's an autoimmune protocol, like for autoimmune. So it's very strict. If you want to know more about that and how it compares to an anti-inflammatory way of eating, because it's not really a diet, I wrote a blog honestly in December, and I'm going to write more, but if you want to read it, it's actually really nice. I like that blog that I wrote at my arthritisdietitian.com, and it really explains very well in detail what an anti-inflammatory diet is. And I gave an example of how restrictions, like when you go into an autoimmune protocol, it compares to an anti-inflammatory way of eating.
Very different,
right?
It's a very
very different. So, and personally, I don't promote it. But like Deb said, some people thrive and they're very committed to following protocols, but I just don't believe in restrictions because of the potential harm that it could cause on our mental health
100%.
and society.
100%. But I did want to comment on that because I didn't want that comment to go by the wayside, skip through quickly. So, nuts and seeds. Those are something that tends to be very good. It's a monounsaturated fat, and the more fiber and protein that comes along with it, and the ones that I tend to recommend more are like walnuts and pine nuts and almonds. Those tend to be, and pistachios, those tend to be a little bit more usable. And I use a lot of those nuts in my salads to add a little bit of a crunch. And almonds, I love to grab by a handful. It's a great snack because it also gives your gut you're more satisfied. You're not still hungry after eating it, so it fills you up a little bit more, and it's very, very good and good for you.
Yeah, I actually I love nuts and almonds, particularly because I have Sjogren's. I have difficulty chewing and swallowing. So when it comes to almonds, I prefer the ones that are slivered ones, or like without the skin, or I let them soak overnight with water. I like the pine nuts and pistachios and cashews, walnuts, because they're softer to eat. And if you didn't know, walnuts actually have like naturally occurring melatonin. So if you're struggling with sleep, so having a snack with walnuts at night, it will really help you to kind of boost your melatonin levels. A little help there. Doesn't hurt.
Again, food is so interesting because it's so vast and broad, and like little bits of information that you just don't think of. And that's what we're here to kind of share, some of those things.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I also wanted to let everybody know that I will have the link to Christina's blog post that she was speaking about in our takeaway that we're going to have for this community chat. So I'll make sure that the link to that is there so that you can all read her article about, or her blog post about that. And we are starting to run out of time a little bit, so I wanted to see if we can move on to any of the hacks that you may have in the kitchen for those who have arthritis, to cook a little bit easier and get some relief from not being in so much pain when they have to cook.
These are some of my little gadgets, and they have different little gadgets too that are in the bottom. So like garlic. I don't know about you guys, but like putting the clove of garlic in and squeezing it with my hands has been a major problem for the longest time. This is something that is you put your piece of garlic there and you close it down and inside your drawer and you just dump it into your food. It is a beautiful thing. This is a garlic press too, and this is a twisting thing. So I have a fused wrist and my hands are quite the problem. My thumbs don't work appropriately, but you can put your garlic in there and twist back and forth, and this is a beautiful thing. Both of these are offered on Amazon. And my last little gadget that I quickly grabbed was, this can be for ginger or garlic or even onion if you just want to get down to a different gratings of it, and you just twist it as well. And then the bottom is where you dump things out of. So these are super, super easy on the hand, and they are my go-tos as far as living different hand disabilities. And a couple things I just want to just say quickly that some of my hacks are sitting down at the kitchen table, which is right next to my kitchen. I have a garbage bowl that sits in front of me. I bring my tools. I use the garbage bowl to dump into, and another bowl where I put my finished product in, sitting down. So I'm taking the weight off my feet, and I use the garbage bowl so I'm not running back and forth to the garbage. I'm staying in one spot. Some of those things are some of my major go-tos, and I have a whole bunch. I've got an entire list of my different hacks that I have. So for working in the kitchen, you can buy pre-chopped vegetables and things like that. So Thanksgiving is my go time, and I've hosted Thanksgiving for 30 plus years now. And I have an entire document. So I will actually make that into a user-friendly document that Leila can actually put into some of the takeaways. I'll let you go.
That's amazing.
Well,
Alrighty, so thank you so much to Cristina Montoya, or the arthritis dietitian, and Deb Constien for that amazing community chat that we had last year. And I do see that a lot of you have found the resources, or have found this community chat to be very beneficial. There was a lot of chatter going on in the chat, so I'm very happy about that. So I also put in the chat the link to download the educational takeaway that is from that community chat. So if you wanted to hear more or see more about it, go ahead and click the link in the chat. I am going to go ahead and move on to our next segment, which is from Rheumission, which is a new integrative and lifestyle medicine rheumatology clinic here in California. It's started by Dr. Micah Yu and Dr. Bonnie, and they are going to introduce themselves and introduce the clinic. And also we have an educational video from Dr. Micah Yu, who also goes by my autoimmune MD. And so I will go ahead and start playing that. And I'll put their website in the chat so that you can see what they are all about as well. So here is the video for Rheumission.
I started in a conventional medical system, and the options were always one drug after another. There were no other options.
When I was initially diagnosed with my disease, I was told that I could go to remission, but it would have to be with conventional medications. And I was certainly not satisfied with that option. I was worried about the long-term side effects. So it's been my vision and dream to be part of a startup company that focuses on remission in rheumatology patients, not just with a conventional approach, but also with an integrative approach, an approach that is balanced with both a natural and traditional approach with medications. So it is really important for me that we use all the tools we have in our toolkit to help our lifestyle, to help put our diseases to remission, which include using food as medicine, exercise, mind-body medicine, focusing on sleep, and minimizing our stress levels.
Personalized, tailored approaches that meet us where we are, that give us what we want each day, and allow us to maximize the joy of every moment during that day, to me is a win, and it is possible for me and for you.
Have you ever wondered whether the nervous system is connected to your immune system? And how does the nervous system affect your immune system? Or whether the nervous system can directly be related to inflammation? If those questions intrigue you, then keep watching. I want to start off by saying that we have different organs and systems of the body, and they're not working alone. They're working with all the other organs and systems together. There's a connection between all of them. And today, we're going to be talking about how the nervous system is connected to your immune system through something called the vagus nerve. And the topic for today is we're going to be talking about how we can lower inflammation naturally through the vagus nerve, because the vagus nerve is connected to the immune system. So I want you to watch to the end of this video and tell me how you lower inflammation through your own lifestyle. And let me know if you've heard of the vagus nerve before. And if you have, what do you do to lower inflammation through stimulating the vagus nerve? And before I continue, please don't forget to like and subscribe to this video. I put a lot of work into these videos, and I would love more people to understand and know about this knowledge to not only help themselves, but to be able to potentially help other people as well. So what is the vagus nerve? Well, the vagus nerve is the main parasympathetic nerve of our body. It is the rest and digest part of our nervous system. When we are activating our parasympathetic nervous system, we're able to digest better, absorb nutrients better, and also to have a better functioning immune system. Many of us with chronic illnesses such as an autoimmune disease are in sympathetic overdrive. And it's important that we try to lower our sympathetic nervous system by upregulating our parasympathetic nervous system. And today, that's what I'm going to be talking about. How to raise your parasympathetic nervous system so that we can try to be healthier. And I want to mention something called psychoneuroimmunology. It's a really big word, and it took me a long time to get this correct. The first time I learned this word, I couldn't even pronounce it correctly. It's been a while, that's why I was able to pronounce it on the first take of this video. And psychoneuroimmunology means how the mind is connected to the nervous system and the immune system. If you type in psychoneuroimmunology on Google, this is the definition, and it says, the study of the effect of the mind on health and resistance to disease. We're going to do a deep dive into psychoneuroimmunology in a future video, but I just want you to be exposed and aware to this word because the mind is connected to the nervous system and immune system. With that said, let's now go dive into the natural ways we can lower inflammation through stimulation of the vagus nerve. Now, there are different ways to stimulate the vagus nerve naturally. I'm going to tell you 9 ways to do it. So if I'm missing something, please comment below and tell me what I'm missing because I can't go over every single way to stimulate the vagus nerve naturally. So I appreciate your comments and I do take time to read them. So number 1 is deep breathing. You want to engage in a slow, deep diaphragmatic breathing. Inhale deeply through your nose, allow your abdomen to expand, and exhale slowly through your mouth. Now, if the explanation is too complicated, let me break it down for you. I like to do the box breathing method. So you breathe in for 4 seconds, and then hold it for 4 seconds, and then you exhale for 4 seconds. And you keep doing this so you focus in on your breath. There are variations of deep breathing. This is just one of the methods. Meditation. Meditation is number 2. This is one that I struggle with, but meditation can activate the vagus nerve, and so can prayer as well. Number 3, exercise. You want to keep moving. Movement stimulates the vagus nerve. Resistance training and cardio are different options. You don't have to do something that's intense. You can simply do something that's walking, swimming, or Tai Chi. Those things also help with stimulation of the vagus nerve. As long as you do something that's rhythmic and it could be at a slow pace, that's okay. Number 4, yoga. Yoga can also stimulate the vagus nerve as well because it involves deep breathing and it can stretch the neck as well. So if you do yoga, tell me what kind of yoga you do. I sometimes practice yoga myself, but I'm not consistent with it. I love it for the stretching purposes and the relaxation purposes as well. Number 5 is splashing cold water on your face. Now, when I heard of this, it sounded really weird, but splashing cold water in the face.
How many of you believe in morning routines? Yeah. I believe how you do anything is how you do everything. And if you want to win,
does stimulate the vagus nerve. Sometimes when you wake up in the morning, you splash cold water in the face, that's a way to stimulate the vagus nerve. So sometimes people do cold plunges, and it does help with that as well. Singing and chanting. No, I'm not going to sing for you in this video, but singing and chanting and humming all can help stimulate the vagus nerve. And the reason why is because you're vibrating the vocal cords, and that stimulates the vagus nerve. So it doesn't matter if you're a good singer. I'm a bad singer, so I'm not going to sing for you in this video. But it doesn't matter if you're bad or good, because that vibration is going to help. So keep singing. And number 7 is massage. And in particular, reflexology. I think it's very relaxing here. So I like to get massages. I like to get reflexology as well. So those are things you can look into. So if you like massages or like to do reflexology, then carry on, because it does help with the vagus nerve and relaxation. Laughter. Okay, this one surprised me as well. Laughter also stimulates the vagus nerve. I like laughing. I like cracking jokes. And laughter is a way to bring the community together, to make other people laugh as well, but also helps stimulate the vagus nerve and helps you relax also. Laughter triggers a release of neurotransmitters as well, and hormones that stimulate the vagus nerve. So keep watching funny movies and laugh with your friends and family. And finally, number 9 is gargling with water. When you gargle with water, it activates the muscles in your throat. And that's another way to stimulate the vagus nerve. So those are all 9 different ways of stimulating the vagus nerve and activating your parasympathetic nervous system. Now, stimulation of the nervous system through the vagus nerve is not only limited to activating the immune system. So it goes beyond just helping with autoimmune diseases and chronic illnesses. It can also actually help with depression, anxiety, and also seizures as well. There are actual devices on the market now that help stimulate the vagus nerve. So previously, probably before I went to medical school, they actually used implantable vagus nerve devices. So surgically implanted. And they probably do it these days as well. But there are devices on the market now you can buy that help stimulate it. So you can buy something that is put on your wrist. You can buy something that clips onto your ear. I use these in my offices as well. There's ways you can do it naturally, and there's ways you can do it electronically. And I would say off for the natural part first. If that doesn't work, the electric stuff probably does work as well. And there's evidence behind that for rheumatoid arthritis, for anxiety, depression, different autoimmune diseases. There's scientific literature out there. And remember, when you stimulate your parasympathetic nervous system, you lower the heart rate and you can also lower the blood pressure as well. If you enjoyed this video or you learned something, please don't forget to like, subscribe, and comment below so you keep supporting my endeavors of spreading this message to more people in the world. And if you want to see me as a patient or you want to work with me, I have 2 ways for you to do that. So number 1 is you can see me in my private practice at Dr. Lifestyle, and the link to that is in the description below. So I am located in Southern California and I see patients virtually or in person, and I am licensed in different states in the USA. Number 2 is there's a new virtual rheumatology clinic called Rheumission. I'm the medical director for that. And you can work with me and other healthcare team members as well. That is also in the description below, and that's called Rheumission. Don't hesitate to reach out and potentially see me in one of those 2 different places. All right, I'll see you guys next time.
Alrighty, well, thank you so much from the Rheumission staff and Dr. Micah Yu for those amazing videos. I have learned a lot about the vagus nerve, so I'm really excited to try and do some of those tips that he recommended. My fur baby Rocco came in and wanted to say hi. So hello, say hi to the crowd, say hi. And so we are going to move on to our next segment, which is going to be from Forward National Data Bank for Rheumatic Diseases. And they are a long-term collaborator with us. And we are so excited for you to learn more about what they do. We actually are in the midst of a project with them to get a lot of patient information in a database. And you'll see in the videos what that database is used for and what the information is used for. And we will also have our CEO and our head of the research part of AiArthritis come in just a few minutes after these videos are over. She's going to be talking about a different program that we have, but she may also weigh in a little bit on what Forward National Data Bank does and what we plan to do with them.
Forward has provided, our group, and not only our group, people around the world, the opportunity to examine, what factors drive outcomes for patients. Are there factors that we can modify and change that improve the outcomes and the lives, really, of our patients who suffer from arthritis? And I think Forward has provided an amazing resource for that type of work. And helping us understand what we can be doing differently in the clinic to take care of these patients. There are certain risk factors that put patients at higher risk, and really it's allowed us that kind of information, and information that's come from other data sets has allowed us really to start to tailor therapies for patients, up front, to make wiser selections about, the treatment that we give to patients. And I think Forward's been a big part of that.
The benefit of Forward is that you're engaging people early on in their condition or at some point in their disease, and then you have data for many, many years, so you can look at long-term outcomes that you can't really look at in other settings. Not only that, but there's also really patient-oriented outcomes in a way, and the detail with regard to those outcomes is such that it really allows for a lot of analyses that aren't possible in other data sets.
Some of the things that make Forward unique are the direct interactions with patients and the registry. so that the information isn't being filtered through a healthcare system. And in some cases, we worry about even information being filtered through providers before the data become available for research. That's a very important voice that patients have in directly providing their perspective to research.
I think most patients are a little surprised to think that, they could contribute this much to research. I think that it really kind of opens their eyes that we could learn from them.
One is mild, 2 discomforting, 3 distressing, 4 horrible, 5 excruciating. Which word describes your pain right now? Mild, I'm sure. Which word describes it at its worst? Excruciating. I've been doing those surveys forever. I have no idea. 20 years? Has it been that long? I know that they're finding out what's going on with people, and they're seeing how long-term effects. When I was diagnosed, you didn't have a lot of long-term people. They didn't live 10 or 15 or 20 years with it. So it's good to know what the long-term effects are. It's so even I can look and see what's going to happen, see what to look forward to.
The longitudinal nature of the questionnaire provides very important information that is unique to our study. And the fact that we've been doing it for 21 years and there are patients still doing it for 21 years is so invaluable. Forward was founded primarily for rheumatologists who said, hey, we want to help our patients get better, but we're not all researchers. So yes, please talk to our patients and we'll give you some data along the way, whatever you think might be helpful. And we're more than not still contributing and relying on people who want to help make a difference.
I have several patients who will comment on, I did my questionnaire, so their twice a year survey. It's almost like an alarm clock goes off and they know that they have their survey coming. And I think for many of those patients, it makes them feel like they're part of it, and they're participating in their care by providing us with that data.
The treatment pyramid has completely turned upside down since I got diagnosed. I do 30-something miles running every week. There's no way that 20 years ago we would have thought that I could do any of this.
We learn from patients, from their life experiences, so we can make it better for them and others in the future.
I'm Fred Wolf, and I was the founder of the National Data Bank for Rheumatic Diseases, and I did practice rheumatology for many years in Wichita. I became a rheumatologist by default because there's nobody else in the community when I first got here who did that. And in rheumatology, particularly for things like rheumatoid arthritis, we didn't really have very good therapies when I started. Some days I'd come home wondering whether I had helped anybody during the day. Somewhere around 1974, I got a computer. Someone had just published an article in the rheumatology journal Arthritis and Rheumatism about a database for rheumatic diseases. And in 1974, I having learned to program this, I wrote a database program. So I wrote this and I began to collect data. And gradually, in the 70s, I began to collect data on every single patient that I had ever seen. Here was my opportunity to find out whether I helped people or not. And so I had to measure how they worked. So I learned how to do some of the scales and some of the stuff that we ultimately invented in terms of scaling came out of all of that, the observations of this.
What rheumatology has taught us more than any other area is that people with RA and other rheumatic diseases, what they are experiencing, how they are feeling, and what they're able to do is more important to their long-term outcome than what their disease activity is that day. And that's why questionnaires have been so important in rheumatology. How you are feeling that day so often can change depending on the weather and your mood, but those things also impact your pain processing, how you are impacted by the pain that you're experiencing, the functional impact as well. Why not collect that in a standardized way on a questionnaire? And we've done that. We've shown that when patients answer their questions certain ways, is much more predictive of how they're going to do than any joint and blood test that we can measure.
Well, that was amazing. I saw a lot of good chatter in the chat as well, talking about Forward, and some of our volunteers have said that they have been doing Forward surveys for years, and some people haven't even heard of them before. So such an amazing organization and service to be able to provide to rheumatologists, organizations, and to patients. So thank you to Forward National Data Bank for everything that you do. And let's see, any more things that I'm going to put up here. Laura said, sometimes even the best docs don't have a broader sense of patient experience. And yeah, it really is two different skill sets in being a great doctor, in finding what's wrong with a patient, knowing the data, and having all the knowledge that you can have, versus being a doctor that is personable to patients and can totally understand what they're going through, or at least empathize with what they're going through. So I totally agree. And Judy said, thank you for having me do those questionnaires. Happy to be taking part for research. Absolutely. It's research is huge. There's always new things to be found out, and always new things to help improve the patient experience. So all of these surveys that they put out are very important in order to help patients and help rheumatologists help patients. So that is definitely needed. I am going to have a brief break in the segments. We have about 10 minutes until the next segment is going to be starting. So I have been waiting to do this all afternoon. I am going to do some trivia questions with all of you. So feel free to go ahead and try and answer the questions in the chat. I also wanted to do, actually, I'll do this first. I will do a quick announcement of our progress for our fundraiser. I tried to, there's like this live tracker that you are able to show for the fundraiser, but it was making my computer very slow. So I will just show you what it looks like on this end. Okay, let's share this real quick. Let me take off this comment. Let me share my screen. Wrong side. Oh my goodness. It keeps wanting to share the wrong thing. Come on. There we go. I'm going to put this back up. Alrighty, so this is our Give Butter page. So as I mentioned before, we are fundraising for the International Foundation for Autoimmune Autoinflammatory Arthritis, but you are welcome to go ahead and donate to any of the different organizations that are on the live stream or that are participating on social media. But I just wanted to give a quick update on our fundraiser, and this is what it looks like on our page. We have raised $3,760. So thank you so much to everybody out there who has donated. And thank you in advance to anybody who is inspired to donate in the next 2 days. We do have a long ways to our 50K goal, but something is better than nothing. And we are so thankful for all of the amazing individuals that have donated to us. So thank you. And thank you in advance for anybody else who is donating. I myself have to go ahead and make sure that I make my donation as well. So I am excited to do that. And so that is that update. I also wanted to share about our merch store, or our new t-shirt that we have for World AiArthritis Day. And one of our volunteers designed it. And so it is so beautiful. I am excited to show you. It is available in our merch store as we speak. And we will show you what the design looks like, because it is specially made for AiArthritis Day 2024. So super exciting and so inspiring to be able to have our volunteers be able to design some merch for us. It is it's a fun job to do. It's also kind of scary because you never know what people are going to like. So I am excited to show you, and it is our volunteer Jenny Weaver who was able to create this design for us. This is let's see. Here we go. Let's show this on the stream. Alrighty, so we have this World AiArthritis Day 2024 t-shirt. There is a beautiful design here on the front, and it also has a 24 with some tracks or slash checkered flags on the back. So it is currently $28. And yeah, we just wanted to show you that. We also do have a whole merch store on here, and I will go ahead and share the link to this in the chat as well. So let's do this. Let me see. Okay, we have about 5 minutes. Alrighty. I am going to ask 3 trivia questions, and anybody in the chat is free to answer if you get the chance. Oh, also, Brittany said, love this shirt. It's also really soft. So hopefully you can all go and check it out. See if you wanted to buy it. It is, very simple shirt. And it's a way to raise awareness as well. It helps us drive awareness, like we like to say. So let's get on to a question. Okay. Let's see. Those with psoriatic arthritis often compare their fingers to this breakfast food. Does anybody in the chat know the answer? They say blank fingers. Alrighty. And the answer is sausage fingers. So that is a symptom of psoriatic arthritis, a little bit of a kind of deformation that happens in the hands. Oh, Deb got it just a little bit after I said what the answer was. The answer is sausage fingers. Okay, let's do this one. What is the most common treatment for RA? Chicken fingers. Brittany said chicken fingers from the last question. Anybody, what is the most common treatment for RA? Also, I forget that there's like a 10-second delay with the stream, so I will wait a little longer for everybody to answer. And we have methotrexate. Yes, Brittany and Judy answered correctly. All right, we're going to do one last question before I bring up. Well, actually, we have no. I was going pretty fast with those, so I have a few more that I can do. Steroids or methotrexate is what Deb said, and Laura also said methotrexate. You all know. Okay, how about this one? Known for receiving a kidney transplant from her best friend, she stars in her own show on Hulu and was on the Disney Channel and Barney as a kid. And this is someone that has an AiArthritis disease. I will read it again. Known for receiving a kidney transplant from her best friend, she stars in her own show on Hulu and was on Disney Channel and Barney as a kid. If any of you know who this is, and bonus point if you know what AiArthritis disease that she is diagnosed with. Oh, I see a ding, ding, ding winner. Deb says Selena Gomez. That is very true. And Laura says Selena Gomez. And she is someone who's living with lupus. You know, she is actually one of those people that got diagnosed with lupus from having kidney failure. Can you imagine? Like, you don't even know that you have this disease, and then all of a sudden you have to get a new kidney. That must have been a pretty traumatic situation for her. Alrighty. Let's see. Dum, dum, dum. Okay. Known for being a member of NSYNC, NASA certified astronaut, and avid advocate for the LGBTQIA plus community, and also has psoriatic arthritis. Again, he is a member of NSYNC, a NASA certified astronaut, an avid advocate for the LGBTQIA plus community, and has psoriatic arthritis. Any guesses? Any guesses? Lance Bass. Yes, that is the correct answer. Alrighty. Well, thank you so much all for participating in my love for trivia questions. So I am ready to start our next segment. We have a special guest to be on camera with me. And it is our lovely and amazing founder and CEO, Tiffany Westrich-Robertson. I just wanted to check, Tiff, are you ready to come on camera? Okay, I'm coming up. Alrighty. Let's see. Can you talk, Tiff, so I can see if I can hear you?
I can talk. Can you hear me?
Let me see.
So I have a note that says you have been muted by host.
There we go. I muted you and unmuted you. So there we go.
Okay.
And welcome, Tiffany. How are you doing this afternoon?
I'm doing great. You can't say I have my jacket on. I have my race gloves on, which are also the Grace and Able gloves that we have partnered with. Sarah, who's an amazing rheumatoid arthritis patient, she chose AiArthritis to do a special glove. This is actually the color of the red in our logo. So these are the chili pepper red is the actual swatch, but these are in honor of AiArthritis. So that's kind of cool. So I'm sporting the gloves. I thought they were kind of racy. So, there we go.
I got mine too.
All right.
Alrighty. So, in our previous segment, I showed some videos about Forward National Data Bank. And so since your wheelhouse is research, I just wanted you to share a little bit about how AiArthritis works with Forward and any plans of what we might plan to be doing with them.
Sure. So, yes, I guess it was about 2015 when we won our first award for innovation in research. And it was everything we do at AiArthritis is always based first on listening to what patients say needs to be solved or resources they must have. And we don't want to duplicate efforts. We always look around and see what everyone else is doing. And then we work with patients to brainstorm. That could be you if you're interested in getting involved with us and volunteering. And we talk about what can we do to improve resources for patients. And so one of the things that we realized through conversations in this project we did in 2015 was the need to have subgroups, the need for, there's no such thing as one size fits all treatment. These are the kind of things we were talking about. Now, I just want to say that was 9 years ago. So if you think now, which some of the things I'm going to talk about when we hear about precision medicine or research or treatments that are designed to match what's best for you so you don't have to do a trial and error process. What? Like, that's amazing, right? That's coming to our diseases. It's in the cancer space. It's coming to our diseases. And that involves subgroups. So it's not really just necessarily one person or what it responds to one. It's like we all have common genes. We all have common cellular structures. We all have kind of these matches. That's why some of us respond really good to one biologic maybe and others don't. That's what we're trying to learn. And that's what patients said back in 2015, 2016, when we were doing this project. That's what they said we needed. And so ever since then, AiArthritis has been invested in everything precision medicine. And that often means identifying either earlier diagnosis, finding genetic markers or different blood markers, things that might indicate diagnosis. It also can be about matching you to the right treatments or even finding out treatments that you would not respond well to. All of this is extremely fascinating. We started joining coalitions. The only one that wasn't cancer for years. Now there's more joining, but we were the only ones in there for a very long time. And with that, we decided that we really need to start thinking about creating our own database so that's partially led by patients for patients. So it's kind of got an exciting spin. And Forward National Data Bank for Rheumatic Diseases, who we just heard from, they have been an amazing partner. They looked at all of the things that we have done. Every project we do is novel, meaning nobody's done anything like it. There's always a uniqueness, a blueprint to it, always designed by patients. And when they got wind that we wanted to create a database that was focusing on understanding symptoms, not only from surveys and collecting those surveys, but also then talking to each other and looking at the responses and saying, oh my gosh, look at all these people who responded to XYZ drug and they're saying these are their symptoms. And then we could talk and have these aha moments and show researchers, hey, look at this. We might be onto something here. These might be subgroups that could, if we knew these things, they could get diagnosed earlier. Or if we knew these things, these are the people you should try in your clinical trials on these new therapies that target these kinds of things, these kinds of cellular signatures. So we can do that. Patients, what? That's true. So that's why we wanted to start this database. And Forward said, we want to house it for you. We want to build it and house it for you. So we're super excited. We do have a link, Michael. I don't have access to the chat right now because I'm on camera.
He already chatted. He put it in the chat.
All right. So Michael is posted that. You can sign up. It's not quite ready to load yet, but they keep telling me we're so close. But we do have a sign up on our website, so you can get a notification to join that database that will live inside of the Forward database as soon as it's open. And like I said, we'll be working on collecting information to identify subgroups, comorbidities, because guess what? 70% of us have some kind of comorbidity. Also, in addition to that, we want to use some of the data that we collect in these subgroups and saying these people respond to these treatments in particular to influence legislation. And I call that research advocacy, because advocacy at our organization stands for public policy, not awareness. I know sometimes it's with awareness, but it means research that will drive legislation or access to treatments. So regardless of where you are in the world, depending on how your medications are chosen for you by your government or your insurance protocols, those kind of things, often if we had enough research to show why we should have access to a certain treatment because it's going to maybe put us in remission because we're part of this subgroup, well, then that is the key to fighting against these entities that say, well, we're not going to give that to you because it might cost us too much money. So the idea is, well, we're going to cause you less money if we can go in remission. You don't have to be on these drugs. Of course, it's a lofty goal, but we're starting it and we're really excited. So that's the work that we're going to be doing with Forward.
So we had a quick question in the chat. Laura was asking, is this PRISM RA? And so I think she's talking about biomarkers.
Yeah,
so
I
if
know
you want to
PRISM
talk
RA.
a little bit if you want to talk a little bit about, so like what we're doing is not necessarily specifically PRISM RA, but it has to do with biomarkers. So maybe kind of going off of that.
Sure. So PRISM RA, shout out to Cypher, which is the group that has the test. And for those who don't know, PRISM RA is a test where you can take to determine if you would or would not respond to TNF inhibitors. And if TNF inhibitors is just one of the kind of biologics like an Enbrel or a Humira, I believe Cimzia also. So there's a whole line of these biologics that inhibit the TNF. So TNF inhibitors. So they inhibit that part of our cellular structure. And those are often the first line treatments in many of our diseases, not all of them. And as we're learning more about biologics, keep wanting to say biosimilars, biologics, we know that some of those that target like IL or interleukin, that's what it stands for, like an IL-17 or something like that, IL-23, we're starting to see that because that's precision medicine. And the idea is if we get more of those types of things too, then it's like, oh, maybe you skip a TNFi. And that's kind of where PRISM RA comes in, is the philosophy is, well, given most patients, their first line treatment is a TNFi, what if you won't respond to it? So this particular test has, and I can't say, I wasn't prepared for this, so I don't remember the percentage of the efficacy off the top of my head, but I know it's a very high percentage of accuracy of patients who may or may not respond well to a TNF inhibitor. So that is one of many actually tests. So that is an actual test created by a company that can be used in the office environment. And so some doctors might have access to prescribing a test such as that. We're kind of in that phase where your insurance or you might not have access to that. So there are studies that we plan to do to partner with people like that and hopefully get those types of tests donated to a study that we can then observe from our database. So those are partners, the types of partners that we would work with. So our database is actually bringing in as many patients as we can and doing research projects that may include things like PRISM RA. It also may include or will include our own surveys where we start collecting information on all treatments that you've been on. We do have the possibility, Forward has the ability to collect biospecimens. So it's all funding and donation dependent. So obviously we need to get the funds in to do these kind of things, but they have the authority to then contact your doctor and request medical records with your permission, biospecimens where you might spit in a cup or blood or however that works. They do have that capability, and under their umbrella, we will then have that capability. So we just, like everything we do at AiArthritis, we will start to talk to all of you, decide what is most important, and then how we will go about doing that. So the way we'll start it is getting as many people in as possible, collecting surveys that start to understand your disease, your diagnosis, certain symptoms you may have, and we're going to also do coexisting focus groups and discussion groups and collect that. You may or may not know I'm also a professional focus group moderator, and I have gone to college courses, so I know how to code, I know how to analyze, I know how to do all of those things. So, and then shout out to Caleb Michoud, who is a lead at Forward. He is a person who was originally diagnosed with juvenile rheumatoid arthritis, or now known as juvenile idiopathic arthritis. So we're really proud of the fact that, again, patient-led. So, and he's a researcher there, so he would be the research lead on our projects.
Amazing. And so as we are sticking in the research realm with Tiffany here, we are going to be starting to talk about our Go With Us program. And Tiffany and Deb, who is most likely in the comments still, are the ones who originated this program in what year again? 2019? 2020. Okay, so 2020. So it's about 4 years old. And Tiffany is going to talk about the next time that we're doing Go With Us, because it's super exciting. It's always one of my favorite times of the year whenever we have a Go With Us going on. So go ahead, Tiffany.
Okay, I'll take it away. So a little background for those of you who don't know what Go With Us to conferences are. Where have you been? Just kidding. Anybody yet that they did not have a good time, that they did not learn. Some of the quotes we receive from these experiences are, work from you in 7 days. And so what are these? Shout out with Deb. We were at a conference, American College of Rheumatology, and we were posting on social media about what we were learning. And there were a lot of patients saying, man, I wish I could go to a conference. There's no way. Either it just would be very difficult, I can't afford to go if that was an option, or just I can't physically go, what if I flared? It's very complex information. There's no way I could actually understand it in a way that would make sense to me, all of these kinds of things. And we kind of sat there and went, why don't we create a program where we just bring people with us? And the idea is that when we go in person, and this is a kind of a different one because we're not actually going to be in Europe for the first time, we're going to attend virtually these sessions, but usually we're in person. So we go to the American College of Rheumatology in November, and then we go to the EULAR, which is the European Rheumatology Conference, in June. And we usually have an in-person team. And then as we're going to sessions, we relay information back. And those who want to sign up just to get the information, we send an email every day with background videos, debriefs, behind-the-scenes photos, just learning tips, little things like that. But everybody who is a patient or caregiver can also sign up for the elevated experience, because everything we do has either learn or elevated experience, learn plus more. And so in this case, our new Slack channels. So we have a Slack Pro platform now. And if you want to go with us and have an elevated experience where you actually can be part of participating while we're watching sessions online, and it will stream into that and talk to you. You can ask us questions. You can do all of that. It's a really, really cool experience. I think in November we had 58 people or something like that online. So amazing. And people from all over the world tuned in. I actually have given Michael, and I don't know if he shared it or not, but I found the actual session. The session list is online. So I sent Michael a list and you can look at all of the sessions, and guess what? For something like $25 US, you can get your own pass. That's exciting, because then when we go to the ACR, the passes are like $2,000 or something like that, or $1,500. So patients can't actually buy their own passes, but you can. So I do encourage school for a whole year. And you can watch it's all coming up. In sessions. I saw a session on sarcoidosis. Shout out to Carrie. A lot on difficult to treat. And also there are some on diet, lifestyle, which I know are always popular. So many things to see at EULAR, and it is in mid-June. It is the 12th to the 15th. However, because we are going online and not in person, we're going to have a delay. So we're kind of saying sign up before that, and then we will probably start gaining access to the sessions maybe the 14th or 15th, and we'll run it all throughout that week. So, and even if you can't be there in real person, still sign up, because you get the daily updates. It's you will not be disappointed. It is one of the coolest research-oriented projects, because we don't just refer back or teach you what we learned. We actually interpret it in a way so that you understand how it affects you right here, right now, and in the doctor's office.
Absolutely. And what we have coming up next is a few of our clips from Go With Us in November from ACR. And so anything else before you hop off of camera, Tiffany, before we start doing the Go With Us clips? Or is there anything else that you want to plug going forward?
The only thing that I'll also say is we do have another version of Go With Us, and we broke it off into the public policy realm. So when I say advocacy or public policy, we have a department where we have a brand new, again, innovative, first of its kind, no blueprint, nothing like it, patient created, called Knowledge is Empowerment. And it is our volunteer and staff led project that is all about getting more patient stories involved, no matter where you are around the world, in efforts to increase access to treatment and affordable treatments. And we have our very first ever coalition that it has a patient and caregiver coalition as well. It focuses largely on new United States drug affordability reviews, but let's face it, access and affordability, it's an issue everywhere in the world. So you will also be what we do in the Knowledge is Empowerment program, which Michael is also sharing. We do field trips. It's a Go With Us. It's the same thing. So we are toggling the program into that experience as well, called field trips, and we will also have those field trips in the coalition. But just the link to the Knowledge is Empowerment is enough, because once you sign up for that, we'll link you to the coalition. So I think that's it.
Alrighty. Well, thank you so much for being here today with me and helping all of us to drive awareness. Tiffany was the mastermind, and along with our other co-founders of this day in general. So thank you so much for, revolutionizing awareness days and putting all of our diseases under this umbrella and creating this organization, because it really does, push forward what you were saying about research. Like, the closer that we get to being able to make these more precise diagnoses and treatments, the faster and better outcomes that we will get for all patients with our diseases. So from my heart, I want to say thank you for everything that you've done. And we are going to head over. Yes, right? Second year taking it over. So we are going to head over to our 3 Go With Us clips, and Tiffany's gonna hop off camera, and then we will have our last hour and a half or so of the Race-a-Thon. So stay tuned. There's still a lot to come.
All right. See you in the chat.
Well, hello. This is day 2. God, it feels like day 10 of the American College of Rheumatology 2023. I really can't believe it's only day 2. I'm saying that. I'm talking to Deb, who's eating a nice big old potato wedge. Skin. Oh my gosh. And we are having a cocktail as well. It has been a long day. You might be able to tell just by looking at me. I am exhausted, but in a good way. So one of the things, just to bring your attention, which has been different at ACR this year, is that we have so many different meetings with potential funders that I personally haven't been able to attend as many sessions as I usually do, but that's okay because I'm still going to make sure that I attend the same amount that I always do. So we're just going to extend it out a little bit because we actually have access to sessions past while we're here in person. So over the next week, I'll be definitely reporting back so you can extend it and go with us. But I did want to give you a little bit of an update on some of the things that we've been seeing or that I've been seeing in addition to the meetings, which have been really meeting heavy, but also a session that I saw that was reviewing several different abstracts, which are summaries. They're like big posters. Imagine like a 4-foot long poster that has bullet points of summaries. That's an abstract. And so it's essentially telling you all of the latest and greatest in certain areas of our diseases. So I'm going to give a report on that as well. One of the things that I do just want to also say, because we don't just report back what we see at ACR, we explain what we're seeing, how we're seeing it, how it might be relevant to your disease journey, but also just how research works so that you all understand. So something is that I just wanted to point out is we can't dictate what is here and what the researchers are presenting. So while there might be topics, tell me more about new treatments in X, or tell me more about diet, or tell me more about this particular topic that I'm interested in. The things that research flows, it ebbs and it flows. So what they're studying, they only are going to talk about things when it's time to present actual findings. It just, we don't know what we're going to come across when we come here. I just want you to keep that in mind. And if we aren't talking about a treatment for you, or you're like, I really want to hear about this, let us know. We'll do our best to find out for you what is happening in that research. I just don't know that it will be presented in a session or something that we'll cover now, because we just can't report back on things if it's not that part in the research where they're reporting back. Anyway, I did want to just one session that I was able to go today, which I really enjoyed because it was talking about several different things that were happening in research. And it was specifically in this one around psoriatic arthritis. Now, if you don't have psoriatic arthritis, don't say, oh my gosh, I don't have psoriatic arthritis. This isn't relevant. It is relevant because I'm going to streamline it for you to tell you why, even though it wasn't psoriatic arthritis, even though it's psoriatic arthritis and it might not be your diagnosis, why it's still relevant. If you've gone with us for the last couple of years, you may have heard the term precision medicine, and that is essentially it's in the cancer space. It's been moving into the rheumatology space. And what it's doing is it's understanding subgroups. Our diseases are very unique per individual. That's why some of you respond to an Enbrel, or some of you respond to Cimzia, and then others are like, sure, that did nothing for me. Okay, that's why we need precision medicine, or understanding subgroups. And so in doing that, there's been a lot of research in the last few years on how we can revise our research to start focusing on subgroups. So in addition to a subgroup of male and female, which tends to be a trend that we're seeing here, they're going back, and a lot of times what will happen with research is they have to start by doing what's called a literature search. That basically means there's a bunch of, think about it like an intern. There's a lot of interns that go through all of this data and all of these databases and all of these publications, and they find as many of them that they can around a certain subject. Then they cross compare them and they figure out, okay, here are some endpoints. Here are some things that were studied in this trial that were significant enough among all of these that we can then combine together and say, okay, there's enough data that this point was covered, and this point was covered, and this point was covered. So in one of the psoriatic trials, what they were really doing is going through all of this existing data that's out there, and they had when you combined it, it was over 7,000 people, and they were studying the data. and they were starting to look at these new treatments and new targets. And when I say targets, different things in our body or molecular structure are different signatures, different cells or genes that might be relevant to what you have, that might be different or might be in a subgroup with other people. And they also measure these on what they call the ACR 20 or 40, or no, that it's 50, 20, 50, 70, 90. So what that means is 20% improvement, 50% improvement, 70% improvement, 90% improvement. For us patients, we know 20%, whatever. So we always are looking for the 50, 70, 90. So in the ACR, in this particular new drug, which doesn't have a name yet, I'm not going to be able, it's not on market yet, but in the research, it was a lot of disease scores at 46 weeks. So think about that. If there's 52 weeks in a year, so you're looking at that, by that point, it was at a 70, there was a very large majority at a 70% ACR, which means they were reporting that they were 70% better. And in many cases, 90% better. That's big. So that is very promising. What I also really enjoyed about this study and in the other studies that they were showing is they're talking about enthesitis, and they're measuring enthesitis, which is different than joint involvement. It is often very prevalent in the spondyloarthritis diseases. So even axial spondyloarthritis, Crohn's disease, anything that falls under the spondy diseases, it is the inflammation of the tendons that connect to the bone. And so there's a lot of talk been for the last few years on enthesitis, and there was a lot of improvement in the enthesitis alone, and they did a complete breakout segment of that. So that in itself, if you have one of these diseases, is important to note, because they're not just looking at your typical joints or things that keep us in an umbrella. The other thing that I want to report back is there was a new word. We love new words. A new word. We have a glossary that we will share with you, and we try to keep these new words coming up, or even words that we might know that you hear and you're like, I don't know that. Let us know, because we want to add them to the glossary. It was called, and I don't even know if I can say it, enthalgia. It was a cross between enthesitis and fibromyalgia. Wait, do that again. So I have to look this up, but when he said it, I went, what? I haven't heard that one yet. So they were talking about pain and pain tolerances, which also seems to be another big one here at ACR. And they were talking about how even though people with fibromyalgia weren't included in this study, particularly because there was an endpoint on measuring pain, still they were looking into this enthalgia or something. I got to go back and play it to say exactly how to exactly say it. But essentially it is the nerve involvement in additional with enthesitis, because fibromyalgia is nerves. So that was just a new word. I didn't even know there was a measurement. I didn't know they were talking about it. Anyway, the other one was about precision medicine, and they called it immune cell profiling. And essentially very complex. I have many slides that I can share in a more specific overview, but essentially they were starting to figure out how to eliminate the geneity in our diseases, which means they're all individual per person, and we're talking about the subgroups. So they're trying to eliminate that, and by doing that, they're looking into different cell structures, how some of your genes all group together, how some of your cells, what are inflamed, what's not, all grouped together. And they're doing this for psoriatic arthritis, but not just that. It's just the study that I saw today. So why is that important to you? Essentially, it's by understanding it, and that creating a thing that all of our diseases are not exactly this, are totally different. They're creating these subgroups. That's why we're seeing male and female. They're starting to look back at old research. They're starting to see who's responding to what are the symptoms. How can we differentiate these diseases so they're not just glumped up in like one big disease. So that's exciting for all of us. So I just really wanted to report back on that. And I have hit my limit of 10 minutes. I will do a separate one so I can give you a little bit of an update on the meetings that I
Good morning, everybody. Today is Wednesday. It's our last day here, and we've gone to see so many different things. As you can see, it's daytime. I wasn't able to do my debrief last night because my brain was a little fried, and I was definitely brain fogging. Yesterday was a day where things like words coming out of my mouth was not happening. So I wanted to give you a follow-up and some more information on the 2 other sessions I did attend. And the first one we did together with Tiffany, and I kind of gave you some highlights. And this one was from 2 different rheumatologists, and it was cardiovascular rheumatology, lessons learned from targeting inflammation to modulate, so control the cardiovascular risk. And this first rheumatologist was really key on pointing out some very interesting things. The first thing she was talking about was atherosclerosis. So that is part of cardiovascular disease, and that's the plaque that shows up in your vessels. And she was talking about that and autoimmunity. So there's definitely a growing relationship, and they even questioned is our atherosclerosis, so cardiovascular disease, is it actually an autoimmune disease itself? What an interesting question, huh? They talked about the different things. So the plaque, the calcium that kind of forms inside your vessel to block the blood flows from flowing quite so easily. The thrombosis formation, so not being able to clot so well. The elasticity, so the flexibility of your vessels, whether it's arteries or veins and things like that, versus getting to be more hardened and not doing so well. Is it more than just a relationship? Good question. The next question, again, like she said, is it actually going to be considered a autoimmune disease at some point? Because there's so many shared pathways and the mechanisms of how they're treated and things like that. Because as you'll hear me say, they've been looking at how they're treating cardiovascular disease, colchicine, as well as they're using TNF inhibitors, which are the same drugs that they treat our diseases for. So that's an interesting crossover. They're using methotrexate, and they were seeing some promise with that. And also the glucocorticoids like the prednisones and the steroid shots that we often hear about. So you'll hear my voice is a little froggy. We were up late last night and we had a lot of fun catching up with friends, but I think my voice had it over these couple days. So excuse my voice, but we were talking about, let me get to the actual take-home points, because I think that summed a lot of this up. First, we need to make sure that we're recognizing the cardiovascular risks that are a part of our diseases. And there's a lot of assessment tools out there. We need to make sure that our rheumatologists are actually looking at the crossover, managing the known cardiovascular risks, using NSAIDs. So those are things like our Motrin and over-the-counter Celebrex, those type of things that are taking the inflammation out of our bodies. Using those with more caution, because they tend to cause really higher than they ever imagined risks to our cardiovascular system and having cardiovascular events. Using corticosteroids at the lowest dose and for the shortest amount of time possible. I'm speaking from experience. I've been on steroids since 13 years old. So I've been on steroids. I'm down to a smaller dose. I'm on 4 milligrams, but it's amazing, something that is cheap, but how effective it is, but how much damage can happen from that. So the overall piece of this message was making sure we're keeping tight control on our disease activity because the inflammation is not good for our hearts. So that was the overall message of that session. I'm going to try to keep skipping ahead because I have another session I want to talk about as well. Let's see. I'm so sorry. I'm just flipping through my slides quick because there were so many of them. But the one other speaker we had was definitely talking about inflammation is definitely the center of cardiovascular disease in our autoimmune populations. They are using low dose colchicine because, as I said in Tiffany's video, that it is now FDA approved as of June of 2023. And there are large size of there's a large population of patients like us that are doing so well with having colchicine added. The only caution is they've got to really keep track of drug interactions and also look at the counterindications and looking at our blood work for our liver and our kidney health. Good things to keep track of. And the next session I wanted to go into was about diet. It was optimizing diet to improve outcomes in rheumatoid arthritis and lupus. So what are the evidence? So she talked a lot about different studies. One study in particular was the Mediterranean diet, which many of us know. It is using fruits, vegetables, olive oils, legumes, low-fat dairy, lean poultry, fish, things like that, and limiting the sugar and red meats and processed foods. So they did Mediterranean diet versus a regular diet and had people do it for 12 days. And the outcomes were incredible. There was a lot of weight loss, and there was a huge number of as you've heard us talk about, the DAS28. So that's a joint count. So when we go to our rheumatologist, they do a joint count to see what is inflamed. Greater reduction in the joint count than they ever expected. So I thought that was very interesting. They talked about teaching Mediterranean cooking classes versus people just learning about it. So just reading about it versus teaching them. And this study was in 2007. And the overall conclusion was that a lot of people dropped out of this because they found it difficult and didn't have the time to be doing cooking and things like that. So they didn't see a real positive correlation in that one. But I thought it was still, again, interesting to see. But the vegan and a gluten-free diet, so that is no animal products, so no butter, no fish, pork, tuna, any of those type of things, and just a fruit, vegetable, and incorporating it also being gluten-free. So they used RA patients who were doing well, and they also went against a well-balanced diet. And a lot of people had difficulty doing a vegan diet. It wasn't really their particular choice because, again, you want to use food and you've got to use it. You've got to enjoy your food. There's another study that I want to touch base on in a little bit. So stay tuned for a few on that one. And I'm going to continue on another video. So stay tuned.
Hey everybody, this is Leila, Health Education Manager here at AiArthritis, and ready to report back on some information that I got from day 2 of ACR, Go With Us. So excited to be here with you all. It has been a journey being here. Of course, when you're actually in person and you have a bunch of patients that are doing this Go With Us program, there's always things that pop up, and schedules that get veered and things that might pop up. So it's been a hectic few days, but it's been so much fun. And my body is doing okay. I'm getting through it. I feel compared to last year that I'm able to withstand all of the walking and talking and getting through the day with a good amount of energy. So I feel like that's improved for me. So that's good. But that's why we're here. We're here to make ourselves known, let everybody know what AiArthritis does so that we can keep doing it. So I'm so excited to let you know about a few of the things that I found out about reproductive issues in rheumatic disease and some studies that are going on in that area. So let's go. Okay, so the first, the first abstract has to do with tacrolimus use in pregnancy. And it was from 2 Japanese researchers that said that there was no significant impact on any of the reproductive or any of the issues that were possible with the tacrolimus use having to do with kidneys and blood pressure and all of that. There was no significant impact in the pregnancy that caused any issues with the pregnancy while using tacrolimus during it. And so this is just the beginning stages of these studies to see how safe tacrolimus is for pregnancy. If it continues to be this, once they keep studying it, it should take a few years for it to even officially be recommended by rheumatologists. So it takes a little while for these medications to be able to actually be used, even though there are some studies saying that it's safe. And yeah, so that's another possible medication that could be pregnancy safe or could be deemed pregnancy safe in the next few years. The next abstract was very cool. It was about a program that a rheumatologist put together in order to teach other rheumatologists about reproductive health having to do with pregnancy and also preventing pregnancy for those who are not trying to have a baby and prevent flares from any unexpected pregnancies. And they basically said that they piloted this program of doing virtual training with rheumatologists so they can feel more comfortable talking about reproductive health with their patients. They got very good feedback. They're trying to get it through ACR to have it as a regular training. And the feedback said they said that they felt that they learned a lot and that they would continue to do trainings if there were more available. So that's awesome. I apologize. Okay, the next, there is studies showing that not like untimely pregnancies that are not medically optimized or unplanned basically cause higher risk for patients. Something that may seem very, like common sense. Oh yeah, like an ill-timed pregnancy, like when your lupus or your RA or your Sjogren's is flaring, can definitely cause a lot of issues. But definitely when you are trying to prove something, you have to make sure that there's studies, right? So even though if something sounds like it's pretty self-explanatory, there needs to be studies in order for there to be any change or for there to be training to be able to have rheumatologists speak to patients about this. It's really important for patients to be able to get this information. So I'm glad that this study is showing that, yes, there is lots of risk with having an untimely pregnancy, that patients really need to be able to be educated about that from their rheumatologists or the rheumatology offices. And again, untimely or ill-timed pregnancies have to do with basically you're not in the right state of your disease or your disease is not in remission when trying to get pregnant or having an unplanned pregnancy. So it makes patients at risk for poor pregnancy outcomes, social disadvantage having to do with health insurance or income. It increases SLE or other rheumatic disease activity, and also inappropriate medication use happens very often when you don't know that you're pregnant. How are you supposed to know that you're supposed to stop taking your medications? And there's so many medications that you aren't able to take while pregnant that it's very hard to know if you were not educated. And if anybody is specifically wondering about your rheumatic condition or your AI arthritis disease, you can go to mothertobaby.org and basically find out, you can search your specific condition. And this isn't even, it's not just limited to AI arthritis diseases or rheumatic conditions. They do have a lot of guidelines for just medication use in general by condition. So if you have psoriatic arthritis, you can Google or you can search psoriatic arthritis on their database, and they will have a list of usual medications that are used for psoriatic arthritis and if they are pregnancy safe or not. So that is a really good resource, Mother to Baby, if you are interested in looking at those lists. The last one was talking about adolescents and young adults and if they are getting educated about reproductive health in general and their rheumatology appointments. And it said about half were told that having an untimely pregnancy would be very risky for their disease, but about less than half actually fully felt that they understood what was being talked about during that conversation. And there's a lot of work that needs to be done in rheumatology where patients are being properly educated about the risk of pregnancy and why preventing pregnancy can be very important and beneficial to one's health. Alrighty, if you have any questions, let me know. You can send a reply to this email or you can go ahead and message us on any of our social medias. Again, this is Leila with AI Arthritis Health. All right, I am back momentarily. I was just laughing because why did both of the videos that I was in today, why was I sick? I guess it just goes to show that I am an autoinflammatory arthritis patient because, of course, I'm getting sick after, or I'm sick all the time. So that was funny. We are going to be heading to our last final several segments that we have. So the next one is from another friend of the organization. Her name is Cheryl Crow. She also goes by Arthritis Life Cheryl. She is going to be giving us some tips on needle phobia. So for those of you who have to get infusions or have to do injections and are not used to it, she has some tips and tricks to help you with that. And also some arm exercises, shoulder, elbow, and wrist to help with pain when you are dealing with that with RA or any of the other AI arthritis diseases. And after we have two of Cheryl's videos, we have two last videos that are both about international things. So we have a stills diagnosis story from one of our volunteers that's located in Brazil. And so that video will be in Portuguese with English subtitles. And then we have, last but not least, Advocacy on an International Stage with Carrie Kellenberger, otherwise known as My Several Worlds. She was a co-host for us last year when we had our 24-hour live stream, and she's kept up with us ever since, and we have tried to support each other in all of our works. So I am so excited to see those videos as well. And then we will have our quick little wrap up after, and yeah, I can't believe that the Race-a-Thon is almost there. We're at our last stretch, our final lap, if you may. And we are going to be heading out of here soon. But first, we have three more segments of very informative and amazing international segments. As you can tell, my brain is shot right now. I'm so sorry, y'all. But we are ready to head to the next video.
Hi there. My name is Cheryl Pro. I've had rheumatoid arthritis for 18 years, and today I'm going to show you how I do my Actemra self-injection. First, I take the medication out of the fridge and let it warm up for about 30 minutes. I also need alcohol pads, a Band-Aid, and some people use a cotton ball, or I just use a roll-up tissue paper. Once the medication has warmed up, I take it out of the container and get the syringe ready and make sure that it's not cloudy and not expired. Looks good. Then I wash my hands. I'm wearing my compression glove right now for pain relief, but I'm going to take it off before I do my injection. Ready to do the injection, I get out my alcohol prep pad. I just make sure to get the area nice and clean. I have a choice between stomach or thigh. I really like to do the thigh. Personally, I find it less painful, but I know other people who find the stomach less painful. So it's really just all about what your own body feels. So I pinch an area where I can feel a good amount of skin and get it nice and wet. And then you don't have to do this. This just gives you a sense of control, but you can let it air dry a bit. Now, I want to mention before I inject the Actemra, or I never know how to pronounce this, tocilizumab. There we go. So Actemra or tocilizumab also comes in an auto-injector pen form, or it comes in an infusion. In general, I actually like infusions because they don't have to be done every week. But in this case, because of the pandemic, I'm avoiding going to the hospital, the doctor's office when I can. So I get the needle ready, and I'm not very afraid of needles, but I am going to give you some tips afterwards about what to do if you have a needle phobia. So I target the area that I already cleaned, and I want to go in at a 45-degree angle. And this one is a little bit bigger or wider than some of my other medications, like the syringes for methotrexate, so it does hurt sometimes. And like I've shown in other videos, instead of pushing down with the thumb, I actually like to push down with the palm of my hand. That just helps because sometimes my thumb joints are tender. And it just kind of helps relieve extra pressure or strain on those. I go a little bit slow on this one. And then I get my little tissue and I put some pressure on the injection site. And it's pretty quick and easy. And then I just put my Band-Aid on. I can barely actually tell right now. I'm crouching so I can get in the view here of the camera, but I can barely even tell where I injected it. You also want to, of course, follow all the instructions given to you by your medical team, but you want to rotate the injection site so you're not doing the same one each time. Here's a couple tips for needle phobia. Now, I personally haven't gone through needle phobia. However, I have gone through exposure therapy for severe claustrophobia and claustrophobia, which is fear of being trapped. That's claustrophobia, and claustrophobia is fear of small spaces. So some of the principles that I learned when going through exposure therapy for my phobia was, first of all, going through exposure therapy with a trained counselor, psychologist, therapist is going to be very helpful for most people. Now you can try it on your own if that's what you're interested in. You have free agency over your life, but having a trained professional can be really helpful because exposure therapy is a bit unintuitive. For me, and I'm just telling you off the top of my head, and kind of from my heart and from my gut, that the most important thing was facing the fear and saying that I can deal with this. I can deal with the thing I'm afraid of, and I don't have to run away from it. So a lot of times for needle phobia, people suggest things like taking a deep breath and doing things to calm yourself down. Interestingly, for my experience of phobia, claustrophobia, I found that those things didn't work for more severe phobia. They worked for mild, like I'm mildly discomfort, I'm on an elevator for like one floor, okay, I'll take a deep breath, that works. But if you're having a more moderate to severe phobia, sometimes the nice sounding therapies don't always work because they actually reinforce this idea that you can't handle it. Like, I can't handle this needle, I need to take a deep breath so that I can handle it. But actually, when you go through exposure therapy, and this is the kind that I went through with my therapist, it was acceptance and commitment therapy, informed exposure therapy. But the idea is that you you expose yourself to what you're afraid of. So if it's a needle, you would, first you could do it in a stair-step manner, like just be in the same room as a needle. And then you can work up to, touching a needle. And then obviously the goal for self-injections would be ultimately to be able to inject yourself. But the idea is that you just say, I'm uncomfortable and I'm going to sit with this discomfort. And you think, well, why? Like, if you're feeling uncomfortable, why don't you just try to like do something to feel better, right? Like do a strategy, do a tool to de-escalate. But it's really bizarre. But in this theory of exposure therapy, it's like the only way out is through. And that you again, when you do those things that take you away from what you're like, what they're afraid of, like again, the needle, or in my case, a small space, or feeling trapped, then you keep reinforcing this idea in your mind that you can't handle those things. So again, the idea is to expose yourself to the thing that you're afraid of and literally just allow yourself to feel the discomfort and then stay with it and not run away from it. Don't distract yourself. Don't try to, look the other way. You actually, and again, this sounds, I'm telling you that this is what worked for me for my phobia. And there's a lot of evidence of exposure therapy for phobias and OCD specifically. So you just allow that discomfort, and over time it has less power over you, because it's kind of like if you're trying so hard, like let's say with the needle, to not look at it, not think about it, it has a lot of power over you and control over you, versus building up your capacity or your tolerance for being able to say, yeah, I don't like this needle, but I'm going to sit with that feeling of discomfort and that I don't like it, and I'm just going to continue with this behavior that's important to me, which would be injecting yourself, if that's important to you. If you decide that self-injecting is not a goal that you want to be able to do and that you would rather have someone else do it, then absolutely go for that. So again, if you are pursuing or interested in pursuing things that will make the experience more comfortable or less painful, there is nothing wrong with doing, an analgesic spray, as long as that's okay with your medical team, or it's like icing the area beforehand. That could be helpful if the pain is what bothers you. For me personally, I don't find the injections that painful, so I don't do anything really special before them. So again, I'm not trying to play junior therapist right now. I'm just telling you the frame of reference that really, really helped me, and that you might want to think about if you've tried the kind of basic strategies, like take a deep breath or calm yourself or think about a happy place, or get your body. Certainly it can be helpful to get your body out of fight or flight, but it also can be useful to teach yourself that you can persevere and you survive despite the discomfort of being in the presence of your phobia. It's like a weirdly empowering thing that at first sounds very out there. Like when my therapist first said that, I was like, this is the meanest therapy I've ever heard of. Like, why? I actually remember asking him, like, how do you do this job? Like, how do you make people go through the discomfort? And he's like, well, because I see that it works. He's like, I've had people come who've had OCD for 20 years and not made any progress in their former therapies, and they've never done exposure therapy before. And after a few months of exposure therapy, even though it's uncomfortable at first, their brain eventually learns that this is for irrational phobias. These are phobias that it's not actually doing any true lasting harm to you, to take your medication, right? In my case, yes, obviously there's side effects, but in general, this is not actually threatening me, So it's in the same way that somebody who wants to wash their hands 15 times, it's not going to be threatening their existence to only wash their hands once. So it's helpful to learn that the consequence that you're so afraid of doesn't actually happen. So anyway, that's my 2 cents on that, just so I know it's a frequently asked question. When I started doing injection videos, I literally was just doing them because I thought, it'd be nice for people to have it kind of be normalized and see someone doing the medication, because it's always kind of very dry. If you get those hospital produced videos, sometimes you just want to see a normal person, doing the injection. I didn't really think that people would be maybe feeling really stressed watching it. So I do apologize for not being sensitive to that before, even though I've been through my own therapy for phobias. I didn't remember how many people have a needle phobia. It's a very high percentage. So it's, again, you're not alone. It's not like you're weak or you're wrong for having it, but it is something that you can potentially, you know, grow out of or learn to live with in a more comfortable way. But you have to first be uncomfortable. Again, it's very paradoxical. So that's it. And those of you who see my other videos know that I have lots of life hack videos, lots of personal story videos from the Arthritis Life podcast. So I'm always open for topic suggestions for more videos in the future. Bye. Medical centers in most cities have outpatient clinics, which means just walk-in clinics you can go to, and the occupational therapist or physical therapist can do an individualized media and YouTube flexion and extension. So if you're going to start wrist hand exercises today, let's start with flexion and extension. So if you're going to start, I want this to be very beginner friendly, you know, and so if you're fatigued from your rheumatic disease, you might find it easier to start off just in the sitting position. So I'm going to demonstrate this using tomato sauce cans, but if you're totally just getting started, you also could use nothing in your hands. You could hold something lighter, or if you're more advanced, you can hold something heavier. So basically this is an example. It's a shoulder flexion and extension is an example of something that is both a strengthening exercise and a stretching exercise. So you start with these in your lap with your arms in what's called like the neutral-ish position, which is where your wrists are facing inward. And then you slowly stretch up, keeping your elbows in the same plane. So you're not going like scrunching out like this or not going out to the side. You're staying straight. Oops, there we go. I'm a little hypermobile, so it's hard for me sometimes. And then you slowly lower back down. It's really important to slowly go back down for your strengthening, because a lot of times, because gravity helps you, people want to like speed through and just let gravity do the work, like, but actually if you slowly and you do it slowly and more controlled, you're going to actually work those extensor muscles for the shoulder. So that is shoulder flexion and extension. And you know, you'll get various ideas again from a physical or occupational therapist on how many to do. Some will tell you 6 repetitions, some will say 8. So it takes time to kind of figure out your own sweet spot. You do want it to be challenging, but not so challenging that you're excessively in pain or fatigued afterward. So next I'm going to show you shoulder internal and external rotation. What this is in the shoulder joint here, you're going to be going external and then internal rotation. There's actually a lot of different muscles that work on this. And the important thing is you're going to keep your elbow at your side. You're not going to do this. You're going to keep your elbow in the same position. And then it's actually a lot of these muscles in the back help the shoulder as well as some of the ones in the front. So you keep your little cans, if it's cans of soup or weights, in your hand here. And then you can do them together at the same time like this. One of the shoulders is doing external, one's doing internal. And you want to think about keep not letting your shoulders go up. That's one of my biggest issues. It's like what happens when you do exercises a lot is that you have the muscles that you're not trying to target often try to compensate for weakness in the muscles that you're targeting. So the upper trapezius, which is one that's really tight for me, it's like, I can help, let's do that. But you're like, no, I'm trying to work these muscles around the scapula that are your shoulder blade that help with internal and external rotation. And this is something, again, you can do without any weights, any resistance, as like more of a stretch, or with resistance as more of a strengthening exercise. And again, the amount of repetitions is really going to depend on your own level of fitness and strengthening. And basically what I say is any movement is better than no movement as long as it's not causing you additional pain or fatigue. So that is shoulder internal and external rotation. The next example exercise is simple old bicep curls. So in this one, the backs of your hands or the knuckle parts are in your lap, and then you simply keeping your elbows at your sides. You slowly bring your little hands up, so where your hands are kind of touching, going towards your shoulders, and then slowly bring them back down. So it's actually elbow flexion, that's the bicep, but then also extension, that's the muscles, the triceps on the side of the upper arm. You can do this as many times as you want. Most people's biceps are stronger than their triceps, so you might feel those triceps fatiguing quicker than your biceps. The next one I want to show you is wrist extension and wrist flexion. So if you sit with your palms in front of you, wrist flexion goes like this, and wrist extension is like this. So you can, with some weights as resistance, these are actually probably a little too big because I'm kind of having to change my angle to just keep my grip on this. But just to show you an example, you want to feel when you're flexing, you feel these muscles working on this part of your forearm. And when you're extending, you feel these muscles working. There's a ton of muscles, tiny little muscles that are in your forearm that actually many of them cross the wrist joints and go into the hand and help control your fingers as well. So again, this might be something that might be contraindicated if you have carpal tunnel syndrome or wrist fusions. I mean, there's, like I said earlier, there's caveats for everything. This is definitely not a replacement for an individualized exercise program from a licensed, occupational therapist or physical therapist, but it's a demonstration of something that I, for example, as a patient of rheumatoid arthritis for 20 years, that's appropriate for me. And it's something that, again, it's a stretch if you do it without any resistance. It's technically a little bit of a strengthening without resistance just because you have gravity. But you also you can do this if you're like taking a little break from sitting at the desk for a long period of time, or you could use some resistance and do it as more of a strengthening exercise.
No offense, but if you
Alrighty, so we are going to move on to our next segment, which is going to be Sarah's diagnosis story, and it's going to be in full Portuguese. There is translation on the screen as well for you to read while her story is going on, and we may have a special surprise at the end. So I'm going to go ahead and start playing it.
Oi, pessoal.
Also, let
Meu
me know
nome é
again
Sara,
if
eu tenho
there's no
30 anos, sou do
audio. I
Brasil.
hope.
E eu fui diagnosticada com doença de Still em abril de 2000. Oi, pessoal. Meu nome é Sara, eu tenho 30 anos, sou do Brasil. Oi, pessoal. Meu nome é Sara, eu tenho 30 anos, sou do Brasil. E eu fui diagnosticada com doença de Still em abril de 2022. Para quem não sabe, a Still é uma doença autoimune, inflamatória, e os principais sintomas são febre alta, manchas vermelhas pelo corpo, dor articular e, às vezes, dor de garganta ou tosse. A minha história começa no dia 30 de março de 2022, uma quarta-feira. Eu estava no trabalho, um dia normal, mas eu não estava me sentindo muito bem, eu estava com um mal-estar, então eu saí do trabalho um pouco mais cedo, vim para casa. Eu ainda moro com os meus pais, então quando a minha mãe chegou em casa, ela veio falar comigo, entendeu o que tinha acontecido, e ela olhou para mim e disse: "Nossa, mas você tá com uma cara estranha, seu rosto tá vermelho, você tá mesmo, não parece mesmo que você tá bem. Eu vou pegar o termômetro, acho que você tá com febre." Ela trouxe o termômetro, a gente mediu a febre, e eu tava com mais de 39 graus. E então, logo depois disso, a gente foi para o pronto-socorro. O médico que me atendeu lá fez exame de Covid, de influenza, e tudo deu negativo. Então, ele me disse que era um resfriado, talvez uma gripe um pouco mais forte. Me receitou uma medicação para febre, mas fora isso, não tinha muito o que fazer. Precisava esperar passar. Passados mais uns 3 dias, eu voltei ao pronto-socorro, porque eu ainda não estava me sentindo bem. Fui examinada por outro médico que suspeitou de uma infecção bacteriana, como uma sinusite. Ele me passou um antibiótico, eu comecei a tomar, também continuei me sentindo mal. E alguns dias depois, na madrugada do dia 6 de abril, é uma quarta-feira também, exatamente uma semana depois do primeiro dia que eu tive febre, eu passei mal durante a madrugada, eu tive uma queda de pressão muito significativa, enfim, passei muito mal em casa. Novamente, a gente correu pro pronto-socorro, e quando a gente chegou lá, como a minha pressão estava muito baixa, o médico resolveu me mandar direto para UTI. E é uma coisa besta, mas eu me lembro que quando ele falou isso, eu pensei, nossa, mas eu tenho 28 anos, eu sou muito jovem para ir para UTI. Mas eu fui, e lá eu fiquei 14 dias. Nesse período, eu não tinha nenhuma dor, assim, nenhum outro sintoma específico que desse alguma dica, vamos dizer assim, para os médicos de qual seria o meu problema. Todos os dias eu fazia exame de sangue, eu fazia raio-x dos pulmões. Fui analisada por médicos de várias especialidades, infectologista, neurologista, oftalmo, nutricionista, tudo. No total, em 14 dias de internação, foram mais de 350 exames, entre exame de sangue, exame de imagem, como raio-x, ressonância magnética, tomografia. Até que no final da internação, a infectologista que estava me atendendo, ela chamou a reumatologista do hospital para analisar o meu caso. A infectologista já estava suspeitando da STIL, então eu fiz exames para lúpus, artrite reumatoide e alguma outra doença que eu não me lembro, e deu tudo negativo, assim como das outras doenças infecciosas. E aí então a gente fechou o diagnóstico na doença de STIL. Comecei a fazer o tratamento com corticoide, como costuma acontecer com a maioria dos pacientes, mas eu tive uma complicação com o corticoide, eu tive um episódio de osteonecrose nos 2 joelhos. Hoje eu tô bem, me recuperei, com o acompanhamento da minha reumatologista, de um ortopedista. Hoje existe ainda uma lesão, mas eu tô praticamente 100% recuperada. E então, em novembro de 2022, dezembro, eu tive outra crise da STIL, porque devido a esse problema da osteonecrose, a gente teve que fazer a retirada do corticoide. Só que o meu sistema imunológico ainda não estava totalmente controlado. Mas aí, então, em dezembro de 2022, comecei a fazer o tratamento com medicação imunobiológica, né? E que é muito comum também. E hoje eu tô super bem, estou em remissão, ainda tomo medicação, mas os meus exames estão todos controlados, eu não tenho nenhum sintoma físico. E é isso. Essa foi a minha história. Foi difícil, né? Eu contei aqui uma versão muito resumida, mas foi uma jornada longa, tem sido uma jornada longa, e eu fico muito feliz de poder participar dessa data, porque esse tipo de doença, né, não só a STIL, mas todas as outras, precisam muito de conscientização. As pessoas precisam conhecer as nossas condições, especialmente no caso da STIL. Não existe um exame clínico, um exame de sangue que você faça e dê negativo para essa doença. Então você tem que passar por essa jornada de fazer exames para todos os tipos de doença que existem, para doenças que você nunca ouviu falar na sua vida, que foi o meu caso. E cada exame, né, você pensa, você não quer que ele dê positivo, porque óbvio, você não quer ter aquela doença, mas ao mesmo tempo você quer que ele dê positivo, porque você quer saber o que você tem. E ter o exame sempre negativo, 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 isso é muito, muito difícil como paciente. Mas, então, por isso que essas datas, como o dia de hoje, são tão importantes. Eu estou muito feliz em mais uma vez participar dessa aqui. Queria agradecer ao AiArthritis pela iniciativa.
And thank you so much to Sarah for sharing her story with us. I just wanted to thank her again for doing the video. I know that you had so much to do this week. Sarah is actually a lawyer in Brazil, and she had to take over some extra workload this weekend. So it pushed her video that she was originally planning on doing. But thank you so much, Sarah, for making the time to share your story with us. And to all of the different volunteers that have done all of the different tasks today. I'll say a little bit more in our wrap up, but I just wanted to acknowledge all of our volunteers that have created segments, have helped organize, and have done so much for us for this day. So we have our last but not least segment of the day to Miss Carrie Kellenberger, and she is located in Taiwan. And yeah, let's see what she talks about advocacy on the international stage and how it is for her to participate in advocacy in a foreign country.
Hi, friends. Hello, AiArthritis friends. Welcome to my Several Worlds. I'm Carrie Kellenberger, tuning in from beautiful Taiwan, and I'm so pleased to be here today for World AiArthritis Day. Thanks so much to Tiffany, Leila, Michael, and the amazing team at AiArthritis for checking in on all my health drama over the past year. And thanks for having me here today again for the second time. This is my second time joining World AiArthritis Day initiatives. So I'm thrilled to be here. And today I'm going to tell you a little bit about my advocacy journey and how I got my axe spot and psoriatic arthritis diagnoses. You've likely already heard a lot about life with autoimmune arthritis and what to expect from previous presenters, but there's a lot more to come. So make sure you stay tuned because I know Tiffany and her amazing team of race car drivers have got some amazing stuff set up for us today. So I thought it would be helpful to help people understand a little bit about what I do and how a lone patient in Taiwan breaks into international advocacy without the help of or assistance from large nonprofit organizations. So that's what today's presentation is about. So let's get this party started. Today I'm going to be talking a little bit about who I am, how I started myseveralworlds.com and what it is. I'm also going to talk a little bit about my auto-inflammatory arthritis diagnoses in Taiwan while navigating a foreign healthcare system. A full disclosure that we have over 1 million foreigners here in Taiwan out of a population of 24 million. So there is a high number of patients here who are trying to navigate their appointments in Chinese and English or in another language. And yes, full disclosure, I started my appointments back in 2009 in Chinese, and now I'm doing mixed appointments in Chinese and English. Thankfully, my rheumatologist speaks fluent English, but my caseworker, she speaks very limited English. So it's a challenge. It's not easy, but I've got you covered. And I'm also going to tell you a little bit about how to help other people navigate their own appointments. And talk a little bit about how my articles and information ended up reaching a global audience. And then we're going to talk finally about how I got started in health advocacy and what advocacy can look like in other countries and how we can advocate from an international stage. So you're probably wondering, who is Carrie Kellenberger, especially if you haven't heard of me before. In short, I'm a Canadian patient advocate and a support group leader who's been living in Taiwan for the past 20 years. I moved to Asia in 2003 as an ESL teacher, and I lived in China for 3 years before immigrating to beautiful Taiwan in early 2006 with my husband. And I taught ESL for many years before I took a job in a publishing house in Taipei. I've got a lot of professional writing and editing experience. And then in 2012, I became a business owner. I own a Taiwanese company called Reach to Teach Recruiting. So amongst all of this, I've also been blogging and advocating at My Several Worlds since 2007. And I started really advocating strongly for chronic illness awareness in 2009 after finally getting an answer to health problems that had been plaguing me since my teen years. Most people go home when they find out that they have a life-changing diagnosis, but not me. At that time, my healthcare in Canada had expired. So if I went back to Canada, I have to wait 3 months for my Ontario healthcare insurance to be reinstated. Then I have to find a primary care physician, and the wait times in Canada are very long for that. And then once I've seen and met with my primary care physician, then I have to go on a wait list to see a specialist. And I don't know what your arthritis is like, but my arthritis is very active and very destructive. I'm a difficult to treat patient. I could not wait years in order to see a specialist in Canada. So we ended up deciding to stay in Taiwan, where I have immediate access to specialists and tests. My hospital is 7 minutes away. I see my rheumatologist once a month. I would prefer that I saw him less than that. I mean, I love him. He's a great guy. But, you know, going to the doctor once a month is, it can be a lot. I'm also an award-winning blogger and a published author, and I'm an accomplished professional singer who gave up a 20-year career in music because of throat problems and voice problems related to chronic inflammation. But while I was on stages, I was doing a lot of television work and news interviews over the years on a wide range of topics. I even had my own radio show 20 years ago. And obviously, I'm a retired world traveler. I was able to travel to 35 different countries before I had to stop traveling due to illness. So what is My Several Worlds? My Several Worlds is about the worlds that I live in, and it's about the boundaries that blur between my worlds as I move through them. I started it initially as a travel and culture website to update my friends and family back home about our world travelers and our life in Taiwan. It's actually named after an American author's autobiography of the same name. So her name was Pearl S. Buck, and she was a missionary who lived half of her life in China and the rest of her life in the U.S. from 1914 to the late 1930s. So My Several Worlds felt like the perfect title for me to start my travel blog on. It was the only book that I took to China with me. It was a book that prepared me for my life in China, and it's also one of my prized possessions. So once I got started with blogging, my site quickly became ranked as one of the top 20 travel blogs in the world by 2009. And I continued with that success. And then when I got sick, I had no idea where to take my highly successful travel blog. I had carved this professional travel writing career out of my travel blog, and I was writing for magazines like Travel and Leisure Asia. I'd done some stuff for Lonely Planet, and then suddenly I couldn't travel anymore, so I didn't know what to do. But then I ended up rereading My Several Worlds for like the umpteenth time, and I decided to focus on my immigrant story in Taiwan and talk about the lack of communication that happens at my healthcare appointments because of the language differences. And it didn't take me long to realize that there is a huge gap in information for patients who need English resources in Taiwan specifically and in Asia. And then I learned even further that my global audience of readers really appreciated the simple how-to articles that I was producing for patients on my website. And as we all know, convergences like ACR and summits, they've already started touching on the topic of producing articles and research for patients in different languages, and that has just started in 2023 and 2024. But I was doing it 20 years ago. So I'm glad the rest of the world is catching up with what I already know. And I have that experience because I don't live in a Western country. So my mission now is to connect, educate, and inspire chronically ill patients around the world while also providing those much needed resources in English to patients in Asia, because I never want anyone to feel the way I felt living in a foreign country and navigating a foreign healthcare system in a different language with no one to ask for help. So you are not alone. And as it turns out, you could see my Chinese name here. My Chinese name is 微笑天使, and that means smiling angel. So I think it's an apt name, as many people have often commented that I came into their lives at the perfect time. So moving on to the next slide, I want to talk a little bit about advocacy events in Taiwan. I mentioned that I got my first diagnosis, axial spondyloarthritis, in 2009. And at that time, I had no one to turn to, especially in Taiwan. Plus, there was not a lot of online information in general anywhere for AXSPA patients. Back then, we were referring to it as ankylosing spondylitis. So, of course, I hopped on that topic pretty quickly, and I started blogging about it and releasing information across my social media channels. And it didn't take long for people to find me and for patients to start asking questions. So, and I had so many people asking questions that I decided I'd try an awareness event, like a picnic in Taipei, to see if we could have some fun, and then I could talk to people about axial spondyloarthritis. And what you see on these slides are some of the awareness events that I've hosted, and I was shocked by the number of people that came out to my events. So the middle picture here on this slide is actually my mom and dad, and they were co-hosting events in Canada for me. And that meant that I could kind of do some double dipping with Taiwan and Canada. And all those amazing folks that you see that are kneeling down on their knees, those folks are my former teachers, high school teachers, and track coaches and sports coaches from high school, and they all go out to walk for awareness every month, every May, with the Walking Spondies. All right, so my health advocacy journey in Taiwan, as I've mentioned, I was alone and on my own with 3 devastating and disabling diagnoses. No one told me what to expect. No one explained the differences between axial spondyloarthritis and fibromyalgia, for example. There were no resources for me to look up, and patient support groups were quite hard to access. So I decided to start some. And by 2014, I was becoming a pretty well-known arthritis advocate in Taiwan, and people were starting to know me as that arthritis woman or that arthritis girl, both in Taiwan and abroad. So my events have been featured in the Taipei Times and across all sorts of news channels in Taiwan and in Asia. People were starting to reach out. The one thing that I really want to mention is rheumatoid arthritis tends to get all of the attention. But in the past 16 years that I've been advocating for AXSPA awareness, I'm really pleased and surprised by the progress that we've seen in our community and the progress that we've had with doctors and patients who are becoming more educated about it. We now know that AXSPA is just as prevalent, if not more prevalent, than rheumatoid arthritis. All right, so my next slide, why do we advocate? In simple language, effective advocacy promotes social change. We advocate to process our feelings. Talking about our feelings helps us process what we're going through. We also advocate to tell our stories. And I'm a writer, so I'm going to tell you right now that storytelling is the fabric of societal change. Stories resonate with people. People don't resonate with facts. They resonate with other people and personal stories. And change starts to happen when you're outraged about learning about what someone else you know is going through. We want to change that. We want to help them. And finally, we advocate to help other people. Most advocates that I know are advocating because they know that if they can help just one person on their journey, then their mission is complete. But that's not all of the reasons why we advocate. We also advocate to educate. So advocacy and education, they work together. Reaching out to veteran patient leaders such as myself or to people who are going through it is the first thing that newly diagnosed patients do. I have some citations that point to those studies later on in this presentation, but I really want to make sure that I highlight that. We advocate to make connections. Connections allow us to develop friendships with people who understand what we're going through, and then we get support from both sides. And of course, we advocate to let others know that they're not alone. I can't tell you how many times somebody has reached out to me and said, oh my gosh, Carrie, me too. I'm so glad I met you because I've met somebody that finally gets it. So how to get started in international advocacy. I've put this timeline together. I share it pretty regularly in presentations and on my site, and people are always surprised. They think it's really complicated, and then they see these 5 steps, and they're like, oh, I could do that. So step 1, obviously, is locate and follow advocates from other countries. Don't just follow advocates in your own country. There are advocates all around the world, and it's great to know what other people are doing. Step 2, share your experiences. Tell us your story, listen and be supportive. Experiences obviously differ everywhere, but it's really important to share so we can all learn from those differences. So, one example that I can pop in here really quickly that I see happen time and time again in my support groups, before you go mentioning something casually like medical marijuana, it might be wise to know that some people can't access it. I'm Canadian, so obviously I can access it in Canada, but in Taiwan, medical marijuana is listed in the same category as heroin and ecstasy. So people can get really upset when you're talking about things that might not be necessarily available in their area, or maybe they're illegal in their area. So it's always good to know what you're recommending and what's available in and out of the countries that you're looking and advocating within. Also, step 3, step up that technology game. Technology is the only advantage that international advocates have, in my personal opinion. That is because we can't attend support groups or summits in person. So polish up those tech skills and carve 15 minutes out of your day to check in with others and support their messages. Step 4, focus on your message and hone in on advocacy issues in your area. Be concise, specific, and to the point, and try to remember that what's happening in your area, as I've already mentioned, might not be happening elsewhere, and try to acknowledge it, just so people know that you're aware. And finally, step 5, you need to consider your audience and show your audience that you care. So just be sure that you're supporting the people who are supporting you. Since my audience is global and I have people coming to my site from all over the world, I keep my content really clear and well written. I also go through all of my content each year and I update it, especially the citations. I want to make sure that my citations are not from like 2010. I find citations that are relevant like within the last 3 years and add that to my existing articles. So readers know that I am a trusted voice and a trusted source of information with cutting edge information. And a quick reminder, our voices are unified no matter where we live. It's no surprise that we see a massive difference in initiatives in Western countries like the US, Canada, and the UK. We also know that organizations often want to leverage assistance with patient advocates from these areas or in Europe. It's very rare for me to come across organizations that want to work with patients on my side of the world in Asia. And this started to really become more apparent during COVID, and this is actually the highlight, in my opinion, with COVID is that organizations were forced to go online, and that's where global advocates really started to shine. That's when we started realizing that there were advocates all around the world who had these important messages to share. And then our world started getting a little bit smaller as we became more connected. And what I've learned is that virtual summits and technology is obviously opening up the world to all of us. And World AI Arthritis Day and what International Foundation of Autoimmune and Auto-Inflammatory Arthritis is doing, what they're doing right now with this Race-a-Thon is clearly opening up the world, because they are focusing on advocates from all over the world. And I think that's such an amazing thing to do. I want to remind you that we have the same challenges in helping to improve the experience that people have when they enter healthcare systems. So I'm closing in on the end of my presentation here. Stay tuned for a few more slides because I do have some featured advocates coming up. But in short, I want you to focus on these points. You can look for nonprofits in your area that you might be able to visit. You can look for somebody who speaks your language. I've done that. I've met Taiwanese nonprofits, and I've met folks in my area that speak a mix of English and Chinese. Look at who's speaking about the issues that you're interested in. Make a public testimony about your journey. And of course, as I said before, network and build those relationships. Share, share, share. That's what we do best. Now, some quick international advocacy tips, because people ask me this all the time. Clearly, hosting events was a huge help when I first got started on my advocacy journey. But here are some other quick tips that are really important if you're working with advocates around the globe. Be persistent and network, as I've already mentioned. Be ready to work opposite schedules. My work with North American nonprofit organizations often requires me to be up late into the night. The Spondylitis Association of America has never asked me to do late night sessions, but if I'm attending their Spondy Summit, part of my job is to live tweet about those sessions that I'm watching. And I've done the same thing with the American College of Rheumatology Convergence. So yeah, I've been doing calls with AiArthritis and the SAA often at 10 p.m. or 11 p.m. my time. Poor Leila, for example, last year was up at 6 a.m., 7 a.m. to make things work with me. Thank you again, Leila. I know I keep saying it, but that's because I've never been late. I'll never forget that you got up that early for me. And obviously, of course, be resourceful. If you start working in the middle of the night, start smart. Log in early, introduce yourself, and do some networking, post some live updates, and then announce it's time to go to sleep, and remind people that you'll be back first thing in the morning with more thorough threads and information the next day. All right, my final plug here. Get involved with International Foundation for Autoimmune Arthritis and Auto-Inflammatory Arthritis. Advocates offer a variety of communication tools. AiArthritis in particular, they have articles, videos, podcasts, lectures, demonstrations, speeches, reports, and access to support groups and more. So it's worth your while to reach out to Tiffany and her team at AiArthritis. See what you can get involved in. And I want to make a plug here to let you know again that patients rely overwhelmingly on other patients to disperse information. We need more visual, engaging content to inform and educate people about arthritis and related activities. Now, I'm concluding my presentation here on international advocacy from the international stage, but I put together this map last year. I want to feature it again to show you that a global presence is actually really happening with AiArthritis. So they have a copy of this map without my logo in the bottom of it. But here you can see we've got a lot of advocates in North America. You can see AiArthritis teams are over here. Spondylitis Association of America is here. We've got Cristina in Canada and Eileen in Canada. They both do a lot of great work. There's Effie, who has just done an amazing project with her book on stories around the world, featuring 101 arthritis patient stories, with all proceeds going to AiArthritis. We've got folks over in the UK. So you met Joel last year. Plus, we've got NAS and the Axial Spondyloarthritis International Federation working from Europe. And then all the way over here in Asia, there's me at myseveralworlds.com in Taiwan, and also my friend Cheryl at A Chronic Voice and Dragon Claw. And you've seen all of these organizations and people presenting for AI arthritis. And finally, I want to conclude that these are some organizations that are open to working with international advocates. I can't thank these organizations enough. I'm putting my cursor here on AI arthritis because they are amazing. I'm constantly amazed at how often their team checks in to see how I'm doing. I can't thank them enough from the bottom of my heart. So I hope you'll get started today with your international advocacy. Remember, you can advocate no matter where you are in the world. And remember, each step forward is a step forward on a journey with advocacy. Be sure to learn to navigate your community and the global community. Make sure that you have someone in your corner, and that's all of us here at AI Arthritis. See you next year and enjoy the rest of the Race-a-Thon. Take care and bye-bye.
Alrighty, well, thank you, Carrie, for doing that amazing presentation for us and letting us know how important it is to be aware of the advocacy needed for those in other countries. Here at AI Arthritis, we do our best to make sure that we are aware of everything as much as we can going on internationally and figuring out how we can help and how we can partner with international advocates and international organizations to make the biggest difference possible. Because, of course, there is a lot going on in the US, but there's even more going on in the rest of the world. And so we make sure that we are aware and we educate ourselves and that we help as much as we can on the international stage as well. So thank you so much, Carrie, for that. And as we are wrapping up, I wanted to do a little bit more of trivia for you all so that we can do a little bit more fun before we wrap it up. My brain is starting to go, but I am so excited that this has been a successful live stream, except for in the middle there, we had a little bit of an issue and had to do a new live stream, but at all is well. We are able to have the final playbacks of all of these. So let's get on with it. We had 2 of our volunteers who have Still's disease do their own segments today. So I'm going to do a quick question about Still's disease. Alrighty, so the classic 3 symptoms, sometimes called by rheumatologists as the diagnostic triangle, most often is Wait. Sorry, that didn't make any sense. Hold on. The classic 3 symptoms, sometimes called by rheumatologists as the diagnostic triangle, most often associated with Still's disease. We are looking for the 3 symptoms there. So if there's anybody who knows the 3 symptoms that are often associated with Still's disease. It's actually pretty general for all of our diseases as well. But alrighty, the answer is rash, fever, and arthritis. So those are the 3 diagnostic triangle symptoms that are often associated with Still's disease. And in particular, the fever is a lot higher than those found in the other autoimmune diseases. Okay. HLA B27 is a blank that can be tested for to see if someone may have axial spondyloarthritis. The question is, HLA B27 is a blank that can be tested for to see if someone may have axial spondyloarthritis. Anybody in the chat? The answer is biomarker. We talked a little bit about biomarkers during Tiffany's session. Yes, Brittany, biomarker. Good job. Okay, so last year we did a little bit of a survey for World AI Arthritis Day. For those of you who know the game Family Feud, where they're like, survey says. So we did a survey to answer these questions, and I wanted to share the results with you on theme with taking surveys from Forward Database or Databank and the AI Arthritis database. But I wanted to read you some of these because it's very interesting, and to just get kind of a feel of what happens in our population and in our community. So these are the top 5 answers for name a common symptom of all AI arthritis diseases. And so the top common symptoms for all AI arthritis diseases are joint pain, fatigue, brain fog, fever, and flu-like symptoms. Okay, so name an item in some way that you use in your everyday life to help with your AI arthritis disease. And the top 5 answers are a pill case, heating pad or ice pack, arthritis gloves, mobility device, and accessible kitchen tools. So we talked about accessible kitchen tools. Also, at our very first segment, Caitlin's Aunt Maria talked about how she makes sure to have like a hook or like a way to hang on to her cane so that in case she needs to grab it, it's a lot easier. So just making sure things are more accessible, but also a pill case. Yeah, it's very important for many of those with AI arthritis diseases. Okay, name the amount of time that it may take someone to get to the rheumatologist from their home. So this is basically asking, how far away do you really live from a rheumatologist? Because in a lot of places, it's very rural and it's very hard to get to a rheumatologist. So from our survey, top 4 answers are 1, less than an hour, which thank goodness, I'm glad. Number 2 is 1 hour. Number 3 is 1 to 2 hours. And number 4 was more than 2 hours. But there were outliers there that said like they needed to take a 5-hour plane ride or needed to do an 8-hour drive. So there were a few that answered like more extreme answers. Name a type of doctor someone might see for an AI arthritis disease. And the answers are, of course, rheumatologist is the first, gastroenterologist. If you may not know that Crohn's is also under our disease umbrella, and inflammatory bowel disease. And so a cardiologist, very common to have issues with your heart when it comes to AI arthritis diseases. Unfortunately, Deb talked about that in her Go With Us video earlier in this Race-a-Thon as well. Ophthalmologist, we talked about that also with the Uveitis Foundation or OIUF, and talking about how important it is to take care of our eyes with our AI arthritis diseases. The next is a neurologist. That is also very common, especially in lupus. Dermatologist, that is also, of course, very common when it comes to lupus and psoriatic arthritis. Mostly psoriatic arthritis. There's a lot that needs to that needs to be addressed when it comes to psoriasis. So dermatologists are very important. And lastly is a nephrologist or a kidney doctor. So those are the top specialists that someone with an AI arthritis disease might go to. Judy said, was 3 hours to start with, but now 1.5 hours. That's still very inconvenient. I'm really sorry, Judy, that you have to go that far to see your rheumatologist. I mean, every 3 months must be difficult, you know? or however, if you go every 3 months, every 6 months, or however often you have to go. Okay. Last two questions. Name the amount of specialists someone might see before officially getting an AI arthritis diagnosis. And so the top answers were the top answer was 3 specialists before they got diagnosed with an AI arthritis disease. So this can mean whatchamacallit, that it could mean how many rheumatologists you had to see before you finally got your final diagnosis, or other specialists like podiatrists, and I can't remember the name of the specialist that has to do with bones, but a person that has to deal with bones, or other physical therapists, or any other practitioners. So 3, only 1, 2, 4, and then 5. So 3 was the most common answer, and yes, an orthopedist. That's who I was talking about. Thank you, Michael. So for a lot of people, it takes some shopping around and some jumping around before being able to get a diagnosis, unfortunately. Name the amount of time it may have taken someone from their first notable symptom to getting an official AI arthritis disease diagnosis. I was actually pretty surprised about this one. The first answer is less than a year. And that was the case for me, but that's not the case for a lot of people. So, or a lot of people that I've heard personal stories from. So I was surprised to hear that less than 1 year was the most common. That doesn't mean that they didn't have symptoms before, though. It was just when they, like, in hindsight, oh, this was the first noticeable symptom that I had. But they could have had other symptoms that they may have written off as other things beforehand. So it's less than 1 year, 1 to 2 years, 2 to 5 years, and then 10 plus years. There was actually someone who answered the survey and said it took them 13 years to get officially diagnosed with anything. And yeah, that about wraps up why we're here today. The mission for today is to drive awareness, but awareness so much so that we can turn it into research and advocacy, and make sure that we can keep doing all we can to expedite detection and diagnosis and early treatment in order to lessen the amount of pain and medical issues that a person diagnosed with our diseases may have. And that about wraps up our Race-a-Thon for today. The Race-a-Thon is just one part of World AI Arthritis Day, though. World AI Arthritis Day is a huge event spanning 47 hours. So we are just about not even halfway done, to be honest. We still have so much more time and so much more driving of awareness that we have to do over the next day and a half or so. Actually, yeah, about a day and a half. And so I wanted to direct you all to the World AI Arthritis Day page on our website. I'm going to put the link in the chat. There, if you haven't yet, you can access our social media kit. You can access information about our auto plus inflammatory arthritis equals X campaign, which is our social media awareness social media campaign that is also going on throughout this 47-hour period. And so again, with early detection and diagnosis and treatment, our auto plus inflammatory arthritis equals X campaign is made to just do that, to do just that. It's basically separating diseases. We're separating symptoms into auto symptoms plus inflammatory arthritis symptoms. So auto symptoms meaning brain fog, rashes, flu-like symptoms, and basically a lot of the more internal pain that happens, or internal symptoms that happen. And then plus inflammatory arthritis symptoms, joint pain, joint stiffness, especially when at rest, and it gets better with movement. Those two sets of symptoms put together, therefore, equals AI arthritis diseases. And so the more that we can get people to recognize people, as in health practitioners, nurses, doctors, PAs that are helping us with our diagnosis journey, as we continue on with that, if we are able to direct them to a certain set of diseases, when someone is experiencing this symptom plus this symptom, and it's very likely that it could be this list of diseases, it narrows down from the huge list of autoimmune diseases, and a lot of other problems that maybe are showing themselves. And so I think that's the biggest thing, is we want to be able to show that there's a reason why these diseases are grouped together, because we do have very similar experiences, but also because it can help narrow down diagnosis for those who may have our diseases. And so please check out on the World AI Arthritis Day page on our website, there will be a link to the information for the Auto plus Inflammatory Arthritis equals X campaign. You can print out a poster and write out your symptoms, or you can create your own graphic. And so that is still going to be going on for the next day and a half. So if you haven't done it yet, go ahead and take the time to do so. We also have our general social media kit that has the different graphics that you can post, and also examples of captions if you'd like to use those as well. And in that social media kit also has the individual CAR posts for all of the participating organizations and advocates and patients. And so I wanted to do a quick thank you to everybody that helped out for today. I wanted to thank our World AI Arthritis Day volunteers. I'm going to read just their first names, but I wanted to make sure that we say thank you to everybody. So thank you to Abby, Almas, Brittany, Carrie, Daleen, Deb, Jenny, Jesse, Jody, Judy, Caitlin, Carrie, Kai, Lisa, Maria, Sarah, Shreyas, Tracy, Vandana, and Eunice. So thank you to all of our World AI Arthritis Day volunteers. We appreciate you. We thank you so much for taking time out of your day to help us and to help us drive awareness. And I wanted to thank the staff members that helped me put this day together. Tiffany, Eileen, Michael, Kelly, Deanne, and Janessa. Thank you all so much for your hard work and your dedication to the AI arthritis community. And we all know how much this mission means to us. So thank you so much for all that you do. I also want to give a shout out again to all of the participants of the Race-a-Thon. So thank you to Caitlin Mello, Carrie Wong, along with Demi and Jim, and everybody at ASIF, Dragonclaw, and Kappa, specifically Charmaine Jones, for all of the people at Arthritis Research Canada and the Movement for All Lab, and also at FunARP, or the Foundation for rheumatoid arthritis in Panama, and to the Uveitis Foundation, Uveitis, and the Ocular Immunology and Uveitis Foundation, and Yasmin for their contribution. I wanted to also say thank you to Cristina Montoya, the arthritis dietitian, Spondylitis Association of America, Rheumission, and Dr. Micah Yu, my autoimmune MD, Forward National Databank, Cheryl Crow, Sarah Prado, and Carrie Kellenberger. So thank you all so much for your contribution to this day. I really appreciate all of your efforts and all of your hard work to make this day happen. And yeah, I think that's just about it. Thank you all so much for being here and driving awareness with me for 8 hours. Please stay tuned for our resource library that will be coming out tomorrow. And I will be also collecting anybody else that still is looking to participate and help us drive awareness. So stay tuned for the participation poster that we always have every year of all of the advocates, patients, and organizations that will have participated with us. And let me make sure I'm not missing anything else. Yeah, resource library will be coming, and the participation poster will be coming out tomorrow. So I think that's just about it. You can check out any links that you may need in our Linktree, Linktree/AiArthritis and Linktree/AiArthritis Day. Thank you so much. Again, my name is Leila P.L. Valete, Health Education Manager here at the International Foundation for Autoimmune and Auto-Inflammatory Arthritis, and I am signing out. Happy World AI Arthritis Day, everybody.